To save the girl I loved more than life itself, I chose to betray her, right when she loved me the most. Everyone called me a heartless, ungrateful scumbag. But I didn't care about the vicious rumors when I walked out on her, all to become a human guinea pig for a clinical trial. 3 years later, my living hell as a test subject finally came to an end, and the very first thing I did wasn't to crawl back and beg for her forgiveness. It was walking straight into a funeral home. You see, because of those 3 brutal years of testing highly experimental drugs, my organs were already completely shutting down. Now, I only have 1 month left to live. I couldn't let her find out the truth. If she knew I had intentionally staged that whole betrayal to save her life, she would spend the rest of hers trapped in agonizing regret and self-blame. So, I'll take this secret to my grave and leave her behind forever. Mr. Lee, the director said, the total cost for the funeral package you reserved comes to $91,000. I looked down at the battered bank card in my hand. There was only $40,000 left inside. I honestly never thought that even choosing the way I wanted to die would end up being a luxury I couldn't afford. I slowly handed the card over and muttered, I only have $40,000 for now. Can I pay the remaining balance in a few days? The staff member politely nodded, saying it would be perfectly fine as long as I paid the rest within a month. But earning $51,000 in a single month, that was going to be nearly impossible for a dying man. But there was still one crazy method left that might just be worth a shot. That night, I arrived right at the glittering entrance of the King family's massive jewelry gala. Since I obviously didn't have a fancy invitation, the burly security guards stopped me dead in my tracks outside. I stood out there shivering for 3 full hours. Finally, the elite crowd began to pour out, and there she was. Miranda Gu walked out looking absolutely stunning, clinging affectionately to Logan Ding's arm. A wealthy young heir standing nearby couldn't help but gush. Wow, Logan, President Gu really treats you like absolute royalty. She bought that $80 million ring at the auction without even blinking an eye. Logan flashed a sickly sweet smile and bragged, well, Miranda said you only get married once, so she wants to give me the absolute best of everything. Plus, she promised she'll never ever divorce me. Seeing the two of them about to slide into a sleek black stretch Lincoln, I desperately called out to stop her. Miranda! The second she heard my voice and turned around, a frantic whirlwind of emotions flashed through her gorgeous eyes, before finally settling into a cold, bone-deep hatred. I nervously walked up to her, pulled a worn-out seashell bracelet off my wrist, and said, Miranda, I want to use this bracelet to trade you for $51,000. This little bracelet? It was made way back when we first started dating and took a trip to the beach. Miranda had happily collected the shells and strung it together with her very own hand. Back then, she smiled at me and said, Ethan, trust me, someday in the future, you can use this to trade me for the most precious thing in the entire world. Snapping back to reality, Miranda violently snatched the fragile bracelet right out of my trembling hand. Her eyes were burning with a terrifying rage that looked ready to swallow me whole. Ethan Lee, we haven't seen each other in 3 years, and you seriously only crawl back to beg for money? I lowered my gaze, completely unable to meet her furious stare, and muttered, If it's no use anymore, then just forget it. Honestly, I didn't have much hope to begin with. I really just wanted to see her one last time before I died, to permanently burn her beautiful face into my fading memory. After saying that, I sadly reached out to take my precious seashell bracelet back, but Miranda sneered and threw the bracelet straight onto the hard concrete instead. I immediately dropped down to pick it up, only for her to viciously stomp her foot directly onto the back of my hand. Ah! I couldn't help but cry out in agonizing pain. Her razor-sharp stiletto heel pressed all her weight onto my fragile hand, mercilessly grinding into the pavement. The beautiful seashells shattered to pieces, and the jagged fragments dug deep into my flesh, causing fresh blood to pour out everywhere. Does it hurt? She hissed. Well, compared to the agonizing pain and absolute betrayal you inflicted on me back then, this is absolutely nothing. By now, quite a few elite guests had gathered around us, instantly breaking into vicious, gossiping whispers. Hey, isn't he that worthless scumbag who abandoned President Gu back in the day? Yeah, at the time, President Gu was just starting her business when she suffered sudden heart failure. She desperately needed a transplant to survive. And the second this loser found out, he completely abandoned her without a second thought. Hooked up with some wealthy heiress to live off her money and ran off abroad. He's probably regretting it so much. His stomach is doing flips right now. That's exactly why he's shamelessly crawling back here like a pathetic little leech. God, he really is pathetic. If I were President Gu, I wouldn't just step on him. I'd make absolutely sure to ruin his miserable life completely. What they were saying was the technical truth, but no one knew the agonizing reality hidden beneath those lies. Back then, my Miranda suffered catastrophic heart failure and desperately needed a miracle transplant. I went through absolute hell, pulling every string imaginable until I finally found a donor heart that was a flawless, perfect match for her. The catch? The matching donor was a young man in a vegetative state, and his father was a totally fanatical, obsessed pharmaceutical researcher. His one and only sick condition for donating his son's heart was for me to volunteer as the primary test subject for his highly lethal experimental drug. Being a human lab rat for an untested drug was basically a death sentence, and I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that Miranda would absolutely never agree to let me throw my life away like that. Therefore, to force her to accept the heart and move on, I hired an actress to help me stage the most heartbreaking performance of my life. I had to play the absolute worst villain, pretending that I was cheating on her and abandoning her. But the dark truth? During those 3 years of secretly testing experimental drugs, my body was severely ravaged by the toxic chemicals. Plagued with multiple organ failure tearing me apart from the inside, the doctor gave me a grim sentence. I wouldn't survive past a single month. Right now, Miranda Goo pressed the heel of her shoe down on my arm even harder, and my entire arm began to tremble violently from the agonizing, bone-crushing pain. I forced myself to lift my eyes to look at her, a bitter, self-deprecating smile appearing in my gaze. "Miranda," I choked out, acting like this. "Hey, it's really going to make me think you're still completely obsessed with me, as if you're even worthy." She spat back with pure disgust, kicking me squarely in the chest and sending me crashing to the dirt. A sharp, suffocating pain immediately flared deep in my chest. My face turned deathly pale, and I clenched my teeth together so tightly my jaw ached, fighting to keep from making even a single sound. Squatting miserably on the cold ground, I picked up the shattered pieces of the seashell bracelet one by one, gently stuffed them into my pocket, and prepared to finally leave. However, a smug, wealthy woman dressed in flashy, expensive clothing deliberately stepped up and blocked my path. Holding a ridiculously thick stack of bills in her hand, she sneered. "I heard the dirty rumors. They say back then, you were willing to sleep with absolutely anyone for just $10,000. Well, here is $10,000 right here, right now. Why don't you strip completely naked and show everyone here just how incredibly pathetic you really are?" The degrading words hung in the tense air before the surrounding crowd instantly erupted into a deafening, mocking roar of laughter. Seeing that I was frozen and wasn't moving, some guy chuckled and threw another $10,000 directly at my face. "Hey, if you think that's too little money, I'll happily add another 10 grand to the pot. Come on, take it off for me," he yelled. Feeding off the cruel energy, the crowd immediately began a rhythmic, humiliating chant. "Take it off, take it off." My face burned incredibly hot with shame, and a suffocating wave of intense humiliation rushed straight into my heart. I desperately wanted to run, but I was completely boxed in and surrounded by the ruthless crowd. Standing comfortably to the sidelines, Logan Ding gently took hold of Miranda Goo's hand and said, "Miranda, let's just go. A pathetic piece of trash like this isn't worth a single glance from you." But just as Miranda and Logan were turning to get into their luxury car, someone in the mob lunged forward and suddenly began tearing aggressively at my clothes. "What the hell are you acting all innocent and pure for?" he barked, yanking my collar. "Strip him down so everyone can get a damn good look." I hit the ground hard, crouching down and wrapping my arms tightly around myself, but the thin fabric of my clothes had already been violently ripped to shreds. The terrifying scene before my eyes began to blur into a dizzying mess, and I suddenly felt as if I had been violently thrown back to my helpless childhood, back to those dark days of being mercilessly bullied and tormented in the orphanage. Except this time, there was no hero coming to save me, because I was the idiot who had personally, deliberately driven away the one and only person who used to fiercely protect me all the time. "Get the hell away from him." Miranda Goo's sudden, explosive shout sliced through the air, instantly scattering the cowardly crowd. Immediately following her voice, a designer coat still carrying the comforting warmth of her body heat was roughly draped over my shivering shoulders. "Where exactly is Natalie Lou now?" she demanded bitterly. "The woman you abandoned me to go abroad with back then? Did she really just leave you to live this kind of utterly miserable life?" Despite her harsh tone, I could clearly see a faint flicker of deep, genuine concern for me hidden within her icy eyes. Forcing a shameless smirk onto my pale face, I nonchalantly replied, "Well, she threw me to the curb the second she got tired of playing with me. But hey, I was only ever after her cash in the first place, so I didn't exactly lose out either. Why? Would you like to give it a try, President Goo?" Her eyes flared with pure disgust as Miranda pushed me violently back down onto the cold concrete. Are you really this sickeningly disgusting and desperate for money? Without missing a beat, she immediately had her assistant bring over $100,000 in raw cash and hurled the thick stacks directly at my face. The sharp edges of the paper bills viciously sliced right across my cheek like tiny blades. There should be a massive discount for a monthly retainer, right? She sneered coldly. Well, from today onward, you are nothing but my personal servant. For this entire next month, I am going to take my absolute sweet time playing with you. Leaving those ruthless words hanging in the tense air, Miranda Goo got straight into the luxury car with Logan Ding and sped away into the night. Left totally alone in the dust, I slowly began to pick up the scattered $100,000 from the dirt, laughing bitterly at myself, realizing that my luck honestly wasn't so terrible after all. In just a single miserable afternoon, I had actually earned enough cash to pay for my own funeral money. Clutching the stacks of cash, I trudged straight back to the funeral center. After paying all the final arrangement fees in full, I caught a taxi heading directly to the exclusive address Miranda Goo had left behind. As soon as I arrived at the massive Spring Hill Lake Villa, the head butler practically shoved a cheap set of servant's clothes into my arms. Put these on, quickly. President Goo left strict orders, he scoffed. You are to keep watch right outside her bedroom door tonight. Swallowing my pride, I changed my clothes and walked up to the second floor, stopping right outside the luxurious master suite. But before my hand could even brush the doorknob, the unmistakable, muffled sounds leaking out from inside forcefully slammed into my ears. The blood drained from my face, and my entire trembling body froze completely in place. Every heavy breath and soft moan from inside seemed to transform into invisible, razor-sharp blades, mercilessly slashing into my dying heart, one agonizing cut at a time. Pure panic set in. I spun around, desperate to flee from that suffocating hallway. But before I could take a single step, the heavy bedroom door suddenly swung wide open. Miranda Goo stood there in a thin silk nightgown, her flawless, bare neck noticeably covered in raw, intimate, passionate marks. She crossed her arms and cast a sharp, piercing gaze straight into my eyes. So, how did it feel? Listening out here outside the door like a stray dog. It hit me instantly. I knew Miranda was deliberately staging this twisted, torturous scene just to retaliate against me for my supposed betrayal and cheating all those years ago. I couldn't afford to let a single crack in my armor show. Plastering on a sleazy grin, I chuckled. Honestly, Mr. Ding sounds a little uptight in there, though. I boldly raised my hand and draped it right around her waist, leaning in close and saying, Since you paid me so handsomely, President Goo, I'd be more than happy to step in and give him some expert personal tutoring. Miranda's eyes flashed with fierce rage. She snatched my chin in her palm, her fingernails digging in with a tight, vicious grip. As she spat out, her voice dripping with venom, You really are so unbelievably pathetic. Is it really true? As long as someone flashes enough cash, you're honestly willing to do absolutely anything? A sly smirk crept across my face. Of course. Who in their right mind would say no to cold, hard cash? But Miranda Goo wasn't having it. She violently shoved me away. A man like you absolutely disgusts me, she spat. But don't worry. I'm pretty sure General Wong won't find you disgusting in the slightest. Before my brain could even process what she meant, her voice cut through the air with an icy command. Drag him to the backyard. Without missing a beat, two hulking servants marched right over and started dragging me roughly toward the back. The moment we hit the yard, my blood ran cold. Waiting for me was a massive, ferocious Tibetan mastiff, bearing teeth that looked like daggers. I couldn't stop my entire body from shaking uncontrollably. Ever since I was viciously bitten by a stray back at the orphanage as a kid, I've carried this deep, paralyzing phobia of dog. No way, I am not going in there. I desperately pleaded with the butler standing right next to me. Please, just let me go. Please, I'm begging you, just let me go. But Miranda's voice drifted over from behind me, colder than ice. Ethan Lee, she mocked. Didn't you say you would do absolutely anything for a paycheck? Why are you acting so scared now? The very last threads of my sanity were fighting a losing battle. Swallowing down my terror, I shot back. Yeah, I said I'd do anything for cash. But a twisted gig like this? That requires a serious bonus fee. The chump change you gave me just isn't enough, Miranda roared, absolutely furious. Fine, I will add another 100,000. Lock him in there, she barked. The servants practically threw me into the massive metal cage, the heavy door slamming shut and locking right behind me. Instantly, that monster of a Tibetan mastiff started stalking toward me with heavy, terrifying steps. I gripped the steel bars for dear life as pure, unadulterated terror and despair completely swallowed me whole. Every single psychological wall I had spent years building totally shattered to pieces. There was no way I could keep my cool anymore. Tears blurring my vision, I looked right at Miranda and begged. Miranda, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please, I'm begging you, just let me out of here. Miranda coldly stared down at the man who had once broken her heart, now reduced to a weeping mess, kneeling and begging for his life. But strangely enough, deep down in her heart, she didn't feel even a single ounce of satisfying revenge. Right at that exact second, a blood-curdling scream ripped from my throat. The mastiff lunged, sinking its massive jaws deep into my lower leg. The blinding wave of agony, mixed with absolute, paralyzing fear, was just too much. Everything went completely black. By the time Logan Ding finished changing and casually strolled out, he caught sight of a bodyguard hauling my limp body away. Miranda was right there beside them, frantically rushing outside like a total madwoman. She was in such a chaotic panic that she completely bulldozed Logan right to the floor without even noticing. Logan's gaze locked onto my unconscious body, a twisted flash of pure malice and cruelty gleaming in his eyes. Sometime later, my eyelids fluttered open, only to find myself resting on a ridiculously soft bed. The horrific bite wound on my leg was already fully bandaged up, but looming right over my bedside was none other than Logan Ding. Noticing I was finally awake, he glared at me and demanded in a sharp, incredibly accusing tone, "Ethan Lee, why the hell did you have to come crawling back? You cowardly abandoned Miranda when she was literally dying from heart failure, leaving her completely alone to rot in that bridal suite. Do you have any idea how close she came to dying? When I finally got to her, she was throwing up blood everywhere, completely drenched in it, and she was still weakly calling out your pathetic name. But thankfully, the Grim Reaper wasn't ready for her just yet. Right after I rushed her fading body to the emergency room, a doctor burst in to tell us the miracle news: a perfectly matching donor heart had finally been found. But do you know the very first thing she did after barely surviving that major transplant surgery? She went straight out to look for you. She kept saying she was fully recovered now, so you would never have to see her as a burden again. She promised me she would work her fingers to the bone, earn tons of money, and give you the absolute best life imaginable. And what exactly did you do? You ran off to some foreign country with a filthy rich sugar mommy, living it up in total, carefree luxury. Do you even realize how utterly hopelessly Miranda sobbed at the airport that day? Hearing this, hot tears started flowing uncontrollably from the corners of my own eyes. For the past 3 agonizing years, my suffering was every bit as devastating as Miranda's. I had been completely trapped inside that suffocating, pitch black, windowless nightmare of a laboratory. I had zero way to escape, forced to choke down endless fistfuls of pills and endure a brutal barrage of horrifying drug experiments, day in and day out. Logan sneered. I stayed loyally by Miranda's side for 3 whole years before I finally managed to win my way into her guarded heart. And now, we are finally tying the knot. Yet a worthless loser like you actually has the nerve to come crawling back, pestering her all over again just to scam her out of some cash. My lips quivered as a wave of tragic irony hit me. I desperately wanted to scream that I wasn't here for the money at all. I was here because I was actually dying, and all I wanted in the entire world was to see Miranda's face just one last time. But the words completely died in my throat. I couldn't utter a single sound. Seeing my silence, Logan Ding stepped closer, his voice dropping into a harsh, deeply menacing growl. I will absolutely never let a malicious, blood-sucking parasite like you get anywhere near my Miranda ever again. The second those words left his mouth, he violently yanked me straight out of the bed and then maliciously slammed his own head against the solid wall. Bright, crimson blood immediately began gushing from a nasty gash on his forehead. Hearing the sickening thud, Miranda burst through the bedroom door. Panic painted her face as she rushed to help Logan up, frantically asking, "Logan, oh my God, are you okay?" Playing the ultimate victim, Logan leaned heavily against Miranda's shoulder. Putting on a shockingly weak and frail voice, he whimpered, "Miranda? He just pushed me." I froze dead in my tracks, my jaw practically hitting the floor. I was utterly stunned that this two-faced psycho would actually resort to self-harm just to brutally frame me. But right as I opened my mouth to frantically defend myself, Miranda didn't even hesitate. She delivered a vicious, bone-crushing kick straight into my chest. "If anything happens to Logan," she hissed, her eyes terrifyingly cold, "I will make you pay for it with your own life." Without another word, she scooped Logan Ding into her arms and desperately rushed off toward the hospital. I was kicked down hard onto the floor. A sharp, agonizing pain instantly flared up in my stomach, making my whole body curl inward. But honestly, the pain in my heart was a million times worse. Miranda Goo absolutely hated me. She even wanted me dead. I thought to myself, "Ethan Lee, isn't this exactly what you wanted? So why? Why did it hurt so much that I wished I could just drop dead right then and there? I lost track of time before the butler stormed in with his guards, pinning me down and dragging me all the way to the hospital. They handled me so aggressively, treating me like I was some kind of unforgivable, heinous criminal. When we got there, Logan Ding's head was already wrapped in thick bandages. He lay on the hospital bed, his face deathly pale. Miranda Goo's eyes were filled with pure, devastating heartbreak for him. But the second she looked at me, her expression morphed into deep, burning hatred. "Kneel down and apologize to Logan," she snapped. Her guards practically crushed me against the floor, forcing me to my knees until I couldn't move a single muscle. By that point, I just gave up fighting. A heavy, dead silence completely clouded over my eyes. "If I apologize," I whispered, my voice cracking, "will you let me go? Will you let me leave?" I was so entirely exhausted, in absolute agony both physically and mentally. All I wanted right now was to find a quiet, lonely place to silently wait for my death. But hearing that word "leave" made Miranda Goo's heart twitch with a sudden, painful jolt. Enraged, she grabbed a full glass of water from the nightstand and splashed it right into my face. "You don't have the right to bargain with me, Ethan Lee. What you owe me can never be repaid in a single lifetime." Wiping my dripping face, I let out a bitter, mocking sneer. "President Goo, acting like this just makes you look like a sore loser. It's totally normal for a man and a woman to fall in love and then break up. How does that somehow turn into me owing you? You really have zero shame." Miranda Goo coldly ordered, "Hold him down, make him kowtow and beg Logan for forgiveness." Instantly, heavy hands shoved my head down, slamming it brutally against the hard tile floor. 1, 2, 3 times. They kept smashing my head until my forehead was red, swollen, and oozing patches of warm blood, and they still didn't stop. Finally, it was Logan Ding who softly spoke up. "Miranda, I'm already fine. Just let him go." Miranda Goo immediately pulled him close, wrapping her arm protectively around his shoulder. "Logan, he is deeply malicious. He actually dared to lay his hands on you, so you absolutely don't need to feel sorry for him." But Logan Ding just looked up at her and sighed. "I don't pity him. I just want you to let it go. Miranda, it's been 3 years. It's time for you to finally move on for him." Miranda Goo immediately fired back. "Logan, don't overthink things. I stopped loving him a long, long time ago. Right now, all I want is revenge on this heartless, ungrateful bastard." Logan Ding stared at her, totally unconvinced. Is that really true? Feeling heartbroken for him, Miranda Goo leaned in and gently kissed his forehead. "Of course it is. I promise you, before our wedding takes place, I will make him completely disappear from our world." Only then did Logan Ding give a hesitant, reluctant nod. Miranda Goo turned back to my bloody, battered body and commanded, "Find a doctor to patch him up." And that was when Dr. Liu, a random physician they just grabbed from the hall, looked down at me, bleeding on the floor, and gasped in pure shock. "Mr. Lee? What are you doing here?" Miranda Goo frowned, looking over. "Do you know him?" My heart practically stopped. Dr. Liu was the only person alive who knew the real truth about the heart transplant back then. He had desperately tried to warn me back then. He warned me that Arthur Tong was an absolute pharmaceutical maniac, a psycho who ruthlessly turned his own biological son into a living vegetable. He had said, "If you become a human guinea pig in his lab, you're literally trading your own life for hers." But I had stubbornly insisted on going through with it. Even if it meant trading my life for hers, I had to save Miranda Goo. If Miranda Goo started asking questions and digging into this, my massive secret could no longer be kept hidden. Panicking, I cut in before anyone else could say a word. "Oh, back then, Miss Liu and I partied way too hard one night and accidentally ended up in the emergency room. Dr. Liu was just the guy who handled my admission." Hearing this blatant lie, Miranda Goo's expression turned terrifyingly dark. "Ethan Lee, you truly are sickening. Sanitize this hospital room and completely scrub everyone inside it clean." After barking out the order, she turned on her heel and stormed out with Logan Ding. Desperate, I reached up with a trembling, bloody hand, grabbing the edge of Dr. Liu's white coat. "Dr. Liu, please, I'm begging you, do not tell Miranda Goo the truth about what happened." Dr. Liu looked down at my wretched, battered state and asked, "Just to save her? You let yourself be tortured and destroyed in that laboratory for 3 straight years. Now you barely have any time left to live, and she still severely misunderstands you. Is going through all this hell truly worth it?" A pale, bittersweet smile slowly crept onto the corner of my lips. My gaze was just as resolute as it had been all those years ago. It was totally worth it. Before long, a squad of nurses in full hazmat suits marched in, hauling heavy disinfectant tanks. They immediately blasted me and the entire room with massive clouds of chemicals. The suffocating vapor choked me so hard that tears streamed down my face. Dr. Liu let out a deep, heavy sigh. He handed me a tissue, then gently cleaned and bandaged my bruised forehead. Over the next few days, Miranda Gu stopped playing her bizarre games. Instead, she truly just treated me like dirt, working me like a servant to make me suffer. She forced me to hold a heavy basin of water for her foot bath, only to viciously kick it over, forcing me to scrub the floor on my hands and knees. The meals I broke my back to cook, she dumped them straight onto the floor right in front of my face for the dog to eat. Food made by a filthy piece of trash like you is only fit for a dog. Then, she took Logan Ding out shopping at luxury boutiques, blowing over $10 million to clear out every single watch in a designer store. And of course, she made me carry every last one of those watches back to the villa on foot. I ended up sprinting back and forth for a whole day and night until I literally collapsed on the street from sheer exhaustion. When I woke up in the hospital once again, Dr. Liu dropped a bombshell. Because of the extreme physical abuse I'd put my body through lately, my system was completely failing. I had at most 1 week left to live. Hearing those words, I unexpectedly felt nothing but pure relief. I finally wouldn't have to drag this half-dead, miserable body around anymore, suffocating under the pathetic weight of my love for Miranda. But before my time was up, there was still one last thing I needed to do. Right on cue, Miranda's phone call came through. "Ethan Lee, you just fainted from a little anemia. How much longer are you going to slack off at the hospital?" Her tone was icy and commanding. "Get your ass over to the bridal shop right now and help Logan try on his suits." I dragged myself out of bed and rushed over to the bridal shop. Because I looked like a literal ghost, I had explicitly begged a nurse to put some light makeup on me just to hide my deathly pale skin. By the time I arrived, Miranda Gu and Logan Ding had already changed into their wedding outfits. Stepping out of the fitting room, her wedding dress was a stunning, soft lavender, perfectly hugging every gorgeous curve of Miranda's body. The shop assistants standing nearby were practically drooling with envy. "This dress is absolutely gorgeous. I heard President Gu designed it herself." The lavender detailing was replicated stitch for stitch straight from Provence. I stood there frozen like a statue, tears welling up uncontrollably in my eyes. This dress was the exact same one I had designed for Miranda all those years ago. She had actually brought it to life. But now that she was finally wearing it, the man she was marrying wasn't me. Miranda tenderly adjusted Logan's hair, but the moment she turned around and saw me, all that warmth instantly vanished. "Your face is totally flushed, yet you're still whining about anemia." "Just as I thought. It was just another pathetic excuse you cooked up with your doctor." I raised my hand to wipe away my stray tears, forcing a smile that looked way more painful than crying. "You caught me. I was just hoping to use this to squeeze out a few more days off." Miranda let out a cold sneer. "Ethan Lee, I paid $100,000 to hire you for a month. I didn't bring you here to enjoy a damn vacation. Get over here right now and hold Logan's shoes." I swallowed my pride, walked over, picked up the sharp leather shoes from the rack, and placed them right at Logan's feet. Logan lifted his foot to slide it in, but instead, he viciously stomped his heel down right onto the back of my bare hand. I let out a sharp cry of pure agony. "Ah, my hand!" Logan slowly lifted his foot, shrugging with a careless, mocking tone. "Oh, my bad. My vision was a bit blurry, so I didn't even see what was under my foot." Miranda didn't even flinch at my bruised hand. "He's nothing but a servant. If you step on him, you step on him. Don't waste your breath apologizing." She then walked right past me and lovingly looped her arm through Logan's. Logan stared down at Miranda, his eyes completely overflowing with naked affection. The shop assistant quickly scurried over to help Miranda arrange her dress's long train. A bitter, suffocating sorrow flooded my chest. Shoved aside like trash by the staff, I backed out of the room, looking completely broken. But before I could even make it a few steps, my arm was violently grabbed from behind. Miranda dragged me straight into the adjacent lounge, slamming me back and trapping me against the hard wall. "Ethan Lee, if you hadn't cheated on me back then, everything happening here today would have been yours. You must be choking on regret right now, aren't you?" "Regret? If I hadn't agreed to be a clinical trial subject back then, I wouldn't have suffered through those 3 dark, hellish years. And I definitely wouldn't be standing here on the brink of death. But looking at a living, breathing Miranda Goose standing right in front of me, I felt like every single agonizing second was worth it. I met her eyes, telling her with absolute certainty, "No, I don't regret it." "Why?" Miranda grabbed my shoulders, her voice cracking with fury. "You threw me away for money back then. Now that I have all the money and power in the world, why don't you regret it?" I shoved her away, forcing my voice to stay cold and dead, to hide the overwhelming love tearing my heart apart. "There is no why. I never regret my choices. Then, I yanked a bank card from my bag and shoved it right in her face. There is $64,000 left in here. I'm giving it all back. From this second on, I am no longer at your beck and call. Miranda, we are officially done. In a split second, it was as if Miranda had been violently dragged back to 3 years ago. Back when I stood in front of her holding Natalie Lou, using that exact same heartless, ice-cold tone to say, Miranda, I don't love you anymore. From today on, we are through. Seeing her completely frozen in silence, I jammed the card into her hand, turned my back, and walked away. I was terrified that if I stayed even one more second, the agonizing emotions locked in my chest would completely explode. But right as my fingers wrapped tightly around the doorknob, Miranda lunged at me from behind. She locked her arms brutally around my waist and slammed me hard against the wall. Ethan Lee, do you honestly think I'm still that same pathetic, naive Miranda from 3 years ago? That you can just walk away whenever you feel like it? That you can just throw me out like trash? Staring at her face, inching dangerously close to mine, total panic hijacked my brain. What the hell do you think you're? But before I could even finish, Miranda violently jerked my chin up and smashed her lips onto mine in a fierce, punishing kiss. I thrashed and fought back, but she only pinned me tighter. You bastard. She bit my lip open, and the sharp, metallic taste of blood flooded our mouths. Suddenly, the lounge door was shoved wide open. Logan Ding stood frozen in the doorway, decked out in his full groom's tuxedo. His eyes bulged in absolute horror as he stared at us in utter disbelief. Instantly, Miranda's shattered sanity snapped back into reality. She whipped around, shooting Logan a look of pure, overwhelming guilt. Logan stumbled back a few steps, completely broken, before he spun around and sprinted out the door. Miranda instantly bolted after him. The moment she left, every single ounce of strength vanished from my body. Without her holding me up, my legs gave out. I slid down the cold wall and crumpled to the floor. I buried my face deep in my trembling hands, but hot tears still bled through the gaps of my fingers. I could feel it. Miranda still loved me, but I absolutely couldn't let myself drown in those memories. I was a dead man walking. Why the hell was God torturing me like this? Meanwhile, Logan had sprinted out of the shop and was blindly darting out into the street. A speeding car was hurtling straight for him. Miranda's reflexes kicked in. She grabbed him and violently yanked him back, just in the nick of time. But Logan fiercely slapped her hand away, trying to hurl himself back into the chaotic traffic. Why did you save me? He screamed. Just let me die. That way you can finally be with Ethan Lee without any guilt. Miranda desperately wrapped her arms around him, dragging him onto the safety of the sidewalk. Logan, please, just listen to me. Logan slammed his hands over his ears, sobbing, I'm not listening. But Miranda's voice pierced right through his defenses. Logan, I genuinely wanted to marry you. I did. But the second Ethan stepped back into my life, I completely lost control of my own heart. I absolutely hate him. But God, I love him so much more. If I forced myself to marry you right now, it would be a cruel injustice to you. Tears streaming down his face, Logan looked up at her, utterly shattered. Miranda, I don't give a damn about fairness. I just want you. Ethan Lee doesn't deserve a single drop of your love. He dumped you and ran when you were at your absolute lowest, when you needed him the most. I was the one holding your hand through all of it. Miranda, why won't you just look at me? I've been hopelessly in love with you for 5 whole years. But I have loved Ethan Lee for 18 years, she whispered, ever since I was 7. Back in that orphanage, when he handed me a piece of candy while I was sobbing alone in the dark, his soul was permanently burned into mine. Even though he walked away from me back then, I've never stopped thinking about him, not for 1 second. Logan, I am so sorry. I'm the broken one who doesn't deserve you. Logan screamed, completely breaking down in the middle of the street. Miranda, snap out of it. Ethan Lee doesn't love you at all. He's only coming back for your money. But Miranda's eyes flashed with a desperate, reckless kind of courage. Even if it's just for my money, I don't care. I'm just thankful I finally have enough wealth to give Ethan everything he's ever wanted. Miranda dragged a completely shattered Logan Ding right back into the bridal shop. Just as she opened her mouth, finally ready to pour her absolute true feelings out to me, I beat her to the punch and spoke first. President Gu, I said, my voice dripping with ice. The only reason I ever came crawling back to you was because I got into a massive fight with Natalie Lou. Natalie just called to make up with me. She even went ahead and booked my flight back to England. I've already decided I'm going back. I won't be crashing your wedding with Mr. Ding. Let me just congratulate you both right here. I hope you have a beautiful family and grow old together in perfect harmony. In that exact second, Miranda's heart surged with an absolute blinding peak of fury. Yet, Her entire demeanor shifted into something unnaturally, terrifyingly calm. "Ethan Lee," she whispered, "what exactly was I ever to you in that heart of yours?" Swallowing down the excruciating, shredding pain in my own chest, a mocking, arrogant smirk slowly surfaced on the corners of my lips. "Does President Gu really need me to spell it out so clearly for you? You were just a backup plan, obviously, for when Natalie and I broke up back then. That was the only reason I crawled back, hoping to cling onto a wealthy cash cow like you. But now that Natalie has come back to make things right with me, naturally, I'm going to choose the woman I actually love. To be brutally honest, it's not that you aren't great, President Gu. It's just that you're way too boring and conservative in bed. I still prefer a wild ride, someone exactly like Natalie Liu. Only she can truly satisfy me." Smack! Miranda raised her hand and delivered a fierce, bone-rattling slap right across my jaw. "Ethan Lee," she spat, "you truly are a pathetic, totally shameless piece of garbage." I raised a shaking hand to touch my burning cheek, my voice cracking with forced, choked sobs as I replied, "You're right. I am absolute trash. President Gu should have known that 3 years ago." Dropping that bomb, I spun on my heel, fully intending to leave forever. But Miranda shot out her arm, blocking my path. "Ethan Lee, give me back my bracelet." Her tone was venomous. "From this day forward, I pray I never have to lay eyes on your face again." I froze in my tracks. Slowly, I unclasped the seashell bracelet from my wrist, the very one that had been ruthlessly crushed before, the one I had painstakingly glued back together piece by fragile piece. Miranda snatched the bracelet right out of my hands, and without a second thought, she ruthlessly stomped the shells into absolute dust, destroying any possibility of it ever being repaired again. I could literally hear the distinct, sickening sound of my own heart shattering. I asked in a quiet, completely dead tone, "Can I go now?" Miranda replied in a voice as freezing as a blizzard, "Not yet. I also have one last thing to return to you. Once you take it, from then on, whether you live or die will mean absolutely nothing to me anymore." I nodded slowly. "Fine." That was exactly what I had been waiting to hear. All I truly wanted was for Miranda to go on living a healthy, deeply happy, and peacefully fortunate life, long after I was dead and buried. Miranda lowered her head and whispered softly to Logan, "Ding, Logan, wait for me right here for a second. I'll be right back." She looked at him and solemnly delivered a sacred vow. "Once I come back, my heart will belong entirely to you, and I will only ever love you." Logan could literally feel just how profoundly, heavy, and serious she was when she spoke those words. He nodded heavily. "I'll wait for you." With that settled, Miranda drove me straight to the absolute largest candy shop in the entire city. "Bring out every single piece of candy in this entire store for me." It was the first time the poor shop assistant had ever heard such an insane request. Stuttering with a massive hint of uncertainty, the worker asked, "Ma'am, are you absolutely sure you mean everything?" Miranda coolly pulled out a sleek black credit card and slapped it right on the counter. "Yes, everything." Within minutes, sack after giant sack of candy was dragged out from the back warehouse, forming a massive mountain right in front of us. Miranda grabbed the heaviest bag of the bunch and dumped it aggressively right at my feet. "Ethan," she said bitterly, "when we were 7 years old, you gave me a single piece of candy and completely stole my heart. Now, I am returning that candy to you 1,000, 10,000 times over. I am buying my heart back." My fingernails dug violently deep into my palms, carving bloody gashes into my own skin. Forcing my voice to stay dead firm, I replied, "Fine, Miranda. From this exact moment on, neither of us owes the other a single damn thing. That's right, we owe each other nothing." She didn't spare me a single, solitary glance more, turning on her heel with absolute finality and walking away forever. Only when her silhouette had completely, utterly vanished into the sea of the crowd did I finally tear my desperate gaze away. I ripped open the endless packages of candy on the floor, frantically shoving one piece after another into my mouth. I kept forcing the sweet sugar down until my entire body gagged and violently rebelled, throwing it all right back up, only stopping then. Collapsing onto the dirty floor, I broke down, wailing aloud and weeping bitterly. All the crushing unfairness of these past few years, the absolute agonizing pain, and my suffocating, desperate love for Miranda were completely unleashed through those pathetic cries. When I finally pulled myself together, I paid the shocked shop assistants to pack up all of this candy and deliver it straight to the kids at the city orphanage. The very next day, I bought a one-way plane ticket to head toward the final destination I had reserved for my own funeral, Provence, France. I had already arranged for a quiet, floral burial. When the sickness finally took me, my ashes would just blow away, scattered endlessly across those beautiful lavender fields of Provence. Just as I was about to board my flight, a breaking news report flashed across the giant airport screen, a horrific, devastating car crash. One look was all it took. Even crushed beyond recognition, I instantly knew that car. It was Miranda Goo's car. My mind went totally blank, and the next thing I knew, I was sprinting like a madman toward the hospital. The whole way there, I kept dialing Miranda's number over and over again, but nobody answered. I prayed to any god that would listen, begging and pleading for her to be safe and unharmed. I swear, I was willing to give up absolutely everything I owned, even my own soul, if it meant she would live. By the time I burst into the ER, Dr. Liu was talking to Logan Ding, his face looking incredibly grim. After emergency resuscitation, the patient is finally out of immediate danger, the doctor said. However, the impact catastrophically destroyed her corneas. When she wakes up, she'll be completely blind. Logan looked like he had just been struck by lightning. He grabbed the doctor by the shoulders and pleaded, "Doctor, please, I'm begging you, you have to fix this." Her eyes mean everything to her. She can't go blind. You said the only way to save her sight is a cornea transplant, but the hospital doesn't have any donors right now. Then take mine, Logan yelled. That's when I shoved my way past them both. I'll do it, I gasped out with frantic urgency. I will donate my corneas. Do the surgery right now, Dr. Liu frowned. Mr. Lee, we cannot take corneas from a living person. But you know my chart, I shouted frantically. I only have a few days left to live anyway. Dr. Liu's face turned dead serious. Even if your time is short, there is absolutely zero precedent for harvesting organs from a living patient. It goes against both the law and basic medical ethics. Without thinking, I grabbed a scalpel off a nearby surgical tray and pressed the cold steel right against my throat. If I have to be dead for this to work, then I'll just die right here in front of you. Finally, after forcing them to let me sign a massive liability waiver, the hospital caved. I let out a massive sigh of relief, turned to look at a stunned Logan Ding, and said, "Please, don't ever tell Miranda that I was the one who gave her my eyes." Logan was totally mind blown. "What the hell is going on?" he stammered. "How are you dying?" Suddenly, it clicked for him, like some tragic plot twist from a drama. His voice trembled as he asked, "Wait, back then, did you really cheat on Miranda and abandon her for money, or was it because of this?" A faint, gentle smile touched my lips. "Mr. Ding, just promise me you'll take good care of Miranda from now on." With that, I turned and walked straight into the operating room, never looking back. Under the bright surgical lights, Miranda and I lay side by side on adjacent bed. I reached out, weakly grasping her hand and lacing my fingers through hers. Then, I whispered the name I had kept locked away in the deepest part of my heart. "Miranda, I'm just so happy I get to do one last thing for you before the end." Hot tears slid silently down my face. "Miranda, I love you." As the anesthesia flooded my veins, my eyes fluttered shut, and my fingers finally went totally limp, slipping away from hers into the darkness. Meanwhile, Miranda felt like she was trapped in an endless dream. She dreamed of our very first meeting at the orphanage. She dreamed of the very first time we held hands, our very first kiss, all the way up to my fake betrayal and cheating, and the day we completely broke things off in that little candy shop. But through the haze, she heard a voice. The cornea transplant was a success. However, the donor, Ethan Lee, has passed away. My body was covered with a stark white sheet and wheeled out into the hall. Logan rushed forward in a panic. "What happened to him?" Dr. Liu shook his head. "During the procedure, Mr. Lee went into shock from heart failure. He's gone." Logan was completely stunned, staring at my lifeless body in pure disbelief. He had only just realized that my so-called betrayal of Miranda Goo was actually a cover-up to protect her. And now, I was dead, just like that, right in front of his eyes. Just then, staff from the local funeral home walked up to the doctor, holding the authorization papers I had signed myself. "Mr. Lee already paid for his own funeral package 10 days ago. Please hand over the body to us." After double-checking the paperwork, the doctor solemnly handed my body over to the funeral staff. Logan practically lunged forward to stop them. "Wait, are you saying Ethan booked his own funeral 10 days ago?" Logan felt his brain short-circuiting. The sheer heartbreaking weight of everything hitting him today was way too much to handle all at once. 10 days ago was the exact day I reunited with Miranda. Even back then, I already knew that my time was up. The staff member gave a solemn nod. "Yeah, we're following through on our agreement right now. We'll be taking Mr. Lee's body for cremation and arranging his funeral." The moment those words left their lips, they wheeled my lifeless body away down the cold hallway. Logan Ding's first instinct was to jump in and stop them again, but right at that exact second, Miranda Goo was being rolled out of the operating room. He didn't have a single second to worry about anything else, rushing straight off with Miranda to the intensive care unit. 2 hours later, Miranda woke up from the anesthesia. Seeing Logan keeping watch by her bed, she couldn't even try to hide the crushing disappointment weighing down her heart. Her dreams had been completely flooded with my shadow, and yet, the guy she saw the second she opened her eyes wasn't me. Miranda, it is time to wake up and smell the coffee, she told herself. That heartless jerk is probably already on a flight back to England to play house with Natalie Lou. Logan's eyes lit up with pure, unadulterated joy. Miranda! Oh my God, you're awake. Miranda gave a weak nod, slowly lifting her hand to squeeze Logan's palm. Logan, I am so sorry for making you worry like that. Hot tears instantly welled up in Logan's eyes. Miranda, please, just knowing you're okay is more than enough for me. The attending doctor strolled in to do a quick post-op check on the newly conscious Miranda. Your vision looks completely normal, and there are absolutely no signs of rejecting the corneal transplant or any weird side effect. Hearing that bomb drop, Miranda violently snapped her gaze right toward the doctor. Wait, what did you just say? I had a corneal transplant surgery. Back when she was fading out in the operating room, she vaguely heard someone whispering something, but at the time, she swore it was just a fever dream. Was it actually real? The doctor nodded. That's correct. Because your eyes took a massive hit during the car accident, your corneas were completely shattered. Without a transplant, you would have gone permanently blind. Who was it? Miranda instantly pressed, desperate for answers. Who in the world donated their corneas to me? I am sorry, but due to our strict confidentiality protocols, we can't give out a single piece of information about the donor. With that final word, the attending doc spun around and walked right out the door. Miranda practically ripped her blanket off, hell-bent on jumping out of that hospital bed. Logan scrambled forward, frantically holding her down. Miranda, what the hell do you think you're doing? If they refuse to tell me, I'll go dig up the truth myself. Miranda's heart was thrashing in absolute chaotic turmoil. She was scared to death that the terrifying whispers from her dream were actually real. Seeing her panic, Logan rushed to comfort her. I know who it was. It was an older woman who passed away from a sudden, fatal shock triggered by a bad heart. The hospital's hands are tied because of their strict protocols. They can't say a word. But right after your surgery wrapped up, I saw the whole thing go down, and I even had my assistant drop off a hefty stack of cash to compensate her grieving family. The suffocating anxiety choking Miranda's heart finally vanished, and she slumped back against her pillows. With a bitter, self-deprecating laugh, she sighed. Logan, you know what? Back there in the operating room, I had this agonizingly long dream. Every single second of it was haunted by Ethan Lee's shadow. I honestly dreamed that he was the guy who gave up his eyes for me. Sounds totally pathetic, doesn't it? If she had said this any other day, Logan would have jumped at the chance to drag my name through the absolute dirt. But today, the guy was totally speechless. Why? Because I really was the poor bastard who donated my corneas to her, and I had literally traded my own life to do it. His sweaty palm clamped down hard on Miranda's hand. Miranda, you've got to forget about Ethan Lee. Just treat all those old memories as one beautiful, breathtaking, but hopelessly toxic dream. Miranda squeezed her eyes shut. It took an agonizingly long minute before she finally gave a slow nod. She desperately needed to move on with her life. Ethan Lee, from this moment on, I am scrubbing you out of my memory forever. 1 week later, Miranda was officially discharged from the hospital. She dove headfirst into planning the absolute perfect wedding with Logan Ding. The news of their blockbuster wedding announcement blew up all over the internet like wildfire. And yet, the closer the big day got, the more her chest felt like it was being crushed in a vice. The crazy urge to just pull the plug on the wedding and fly to England to hunt me down crossed her mind a million different times. But every single time that dangerous little thought bubbled up, she would brutally stomp it right back down. She kept feeding herself the same lie that Logan was the superhero who saved her life, and Logan was the rock who stuck by her through her absolute darkest, ugliest days. Stabbing him in the back just wasn't an option. Slowly but surely, she started turning to the bottle just to numb the ache. It was the only way she could drown out that soul-crushing pain. After getting completely trashed for the 100th time, Miranda clung onto Logan, sobbing like her heart had been ripped out. I loved you so damn much. So why did you have to be so cold and heartless to me? I honestly could have forgiven you for dumping me back then. I could have turned a blind eye to every single thing you and Natalie Lou did in England. Ethan, please, just come back to me. I even had them make that gorgeous wedding dress you designed. You saw it that day, didn't you? Is it exactly like how you once described it? When I was designing this wedding dress, I pictured myself putting it on and marrying you countless times. Ethan, I finally have wealth and power. I can turn every single dream you ever had into reality. So why did you still choose Natalie Lou over me? Why? Just why? Blind, drunk, and drowning in grief, Miranda Goo clutched Logan Ding's hand, desperately begging him for an answer she'd never get. Watching her break down, Logan's own heart ached terribly. He had known all along that Miranda was still profoundly, madly in love with me. Even though she wore a perfect, cold mask during the day, he knew the truth. Her heart hadn't forgotten me for a single second. After carrying a completely wasted Miranda back into the house, Logan stepped out of the villa. He looked up, staring into the pitch-black night sky. They always say that when someone dies, they turn into a star watching over us from above. Ethan Lee, he muttered. Have you turned into a star up there too? Just what kind of person were you? Really? For the longest time, Logan was convinced I was just a freeloading scumbag, a parasite driven entirely by vanity and greed. But after the recent shock of the corneal transplant, he vaguely sensed that everyone had completely misunderstood me from the start. He knew there had to be a hidden, tragic truth buried beneath it all. But now, he figured there was no point in digging any deeper. I was already dead, and the dead can never be brought back to life. As far as they were concerned, uncovering the real truth now would only bring them an endless lifetime of torment. Using his upcoming wedding as an ultimatum, Logan quietly set a rigid timeline for himself in his heart. If Miranda could truly hold his hand and walk down that aisle with him, he swore to love and cherish her at all costs, spending the rest of his life keeping her safe and warm. But if the two of them ultimately failed to tie the knot, it would only prove that they were fated to cross paths, but never meant to be. He would finally let go and tell Miranda the absolute truth about me and how I donated my corneas. 3 days before the wedding, relatives from both the Goo and Ding families gathered to help prepare for the big day. Since Miranda had lost her parents at a young age and grew up in an orphanage, the number of relatives she actually kept in touch with was incredibly small. The Ding family, on the other hand, was an absolutely massive clan. Relatives had flown in from all over the world just to attend the ceremony. Logan's cousin had made a special trip all the way back from England, and he even brought his new girlfriend to meet his brother and future sister-in-law. Everyone, this is my girlfriend, Natalie Lou. Instantly, the lively atmosphere in the room dropped dead silent. Miranda's gaze locked onto Natalie like a predator. You're his girlfriend? Then what the hell happened to Ethan? Natalie felt a sudden, icy chill crawl up her spine, as if she were being stared down by a venomous viper. She recognized Miranda immediately, internally marveling at just how terrifyingly small the world really was. Back in the day, she had agreed to a massive favor for me, putting on an act and faking a blatant cheating scandal right in front of Miranda's face. Now, she was actually about to become Miranda's sister-in-law. Remembering that insane stunt we pulled, she felt incredibly awkward and backed into a corner. Forcing a nervous laugh, she waved her hand. Oh, Ethan? That was ages ago. He and I broke up a long time ago. Justin is my one true love. But the very second those words left her mouth, Miranda swung her hand and delivered a vicious, echoing slap right across Natalie's face. 1 minute you're dragging Ethan back to England, and the next you're claiming this guy is your true love. Today, I am going to teach you a painful lesson. You two-timing, two-faced snake. Natalie was completely blindsided by the strike, but she wasn't some weak pushover either. The moment she snapped out of the shock, she fiercely slapped Miranda right back. Stop spouting absolute garbage and slandering my name. My feelings for Justin are 100% genuine. When did I ever two-time or betray anyone? Logan and Justin frantically rushed over, desperately trying to pull the two brawling women apart. But Miranda had already grabbed her violently by the collar, demanding answers with a freezing, murderous glare. You keep claiming your feelings are genuine. Then where does that leave Ethan? If you didn't even love him, why did you steal him away from my side back then? Why did you take him out of the country? Seeing Miranda speak with such absolute fury and conviction, Justin couldn't help but shoot Natalie a suspicious glare. Did you really cheat on me and do something behind my back? Natalie violently wrenched herself free from Miranda's iron grip. Looking anxiously at her boyfriend, she pleaded, Justin, do you really have to question my loyalty to you over this crazy woman? But Justin's eyes were still full of heavy suspicion. Then what the hell is she talking about? Backed into a corner, Natalie threw caution to the wind and blurted out the explosive truth. Everything that happened back then was totally fake. It was just a show Ethan Lee paid me to perform. Hearing those words, Miranda completely froze on the spot, her blood running cold. What? It's the truth. Back then, Ethan said he urgently needed to leave you for a while, but he was terrified that you would stubbornly keep chasing after him. So, he literally begged me to put on that whole fake cheating act just to push you away. Honestly, we never did a single thing back then. And that whole story about me taking him overseas, just another lie he made up so he could completely break ties with you. Justin chimed in. Natalie and I have been together in England for 3 years. In all that time, I haven't seen a single guy around her. As Natalie's words finally sank in, Miranda asked again, her voice shaking with raw panic. Wait, are you telling me that Ethan cheating on me with you, that was all fake? And him leaving for England with you, that was a lie too? That's right. Hearing Natalie's absolute confirmation, Miranda instantly spun around and sprinted outside. If everything from back then was just a massive lie, then what I recently said about making up with Natalie and heading back to England had to be total garbage, too. Where exactly had I been hiding for the past 3 years? Why on earth did I have to deceive her like that? Miranda's mind was practically exploding with burning questions, and finding me was the only way she was ever going to get those answers. But the second she stepped out of the hotel, Logan chased her down. Miranda, are you going to look for Ethan? Looking at Logan, an overwhelming wave of guilt crashed hard against Miranda's chest. Logan, I'm only going to find him to demand the truth about what happened back then. I just need to know why he lied to me. Logan looked back at her, his face dead serious. And after you get your little explanation, are you still going to marry me? Miranda's lips trembled, but no matter how hard she tried, she just couldn't force out a yes. Logan, I can't think straight right now. I just need to find Ethan, fast. A bitter, heartbroken smile crept onto Logan's face. Yeah, I think I already know your answer. Since the truth was completely out in the open, Miranda dropped the act and said it straight. Logan, I am so sorry. I'll visit your family later and apologize to your parents in person. With that, she whipped out her phone and called her assistant, demanding they track down my exact location. Logan spoke up, his voice incredibly heavy and dark. Miranda, stop. There's no need to look for him. I know exactly where Ethan is. A massive surge of pure hope flooded Miranda's heart. She didn't even stop to question how Logan happened to know my whereabouts. She just asked, absolutely desperate, where? Where is he? Logan took a long, deep breath, and he said it, painfully slow. He's dead. Ethan is already dead. Miranda's face drained of all color, turning deathly pale. Logan, I know I hurt you, but why would you say something so horrible about him? Logan just shook his head, forcing out the brutal, unfiltered reality. I'm not making it up. He is really dead. On the exact same day you had that car accident, the corneas you received were donated by him. Miranda's entire body swayed violently. She nearly collapsed face first onto the pavement. No, that's impossible. You're lying to me. Ethan wouldn't die. But suddenly, the doctor's words from the operating room that day started echoing over and over in her head. The corneal transplant was a success. However, the donor, Ethan Lee, has passed away. Miranda grabbed her head, slamming her hands against it in pure agony. So, that horrifying reality she experienced that day, it wasn't just a nightmare after all. The very next second, a violent mouthful of blood coughed up from Miranda's lips. Her body completely gave out, collapsing onto the cold ground. Her lips silently trembled, muttering the exact same phrase on an endless loop. I killed him. I was the one who killed Ethan. I killed Ethan. Panicking, Logan immediately dialed 911 and rushed her straight to the emergency room. After a frantic resuscitation, they finally managed to pull Miranda out of the danger zone. But lying there on that hospital bed, staring blankly with bloodshot eyes, it looked like her very soul had been violently ripped from her body, leaving an empty shell behind. Logan sat faithfully by her side. Gripping her hand tight, he pleaded, Miranda, please, you have to pull yourself together. You didn't kill Ethan. The truth is, he didn't have much time left to live anyway. That single, heavy sentence finally sparked a flicker of life in her. Miranda slowly shifted her hollow eyes toward Logan. What do you mean? He didn't have much time left. Logan's voice completely cracked with raw emotion. That day, Ethan rushed like a madman to the hospital. He demanded to donate his corneas to you. At first, Dr. Blue flat out refused, saying harvesting from a living person was highly illegal. But Ethan just grabbed a scalpel and held it right against his own throat. He screamed that he was going to die soon anyway, and if they absolutely needed a dead body, he'd just kill himself right then and there. Eventually, the hospital made him sign a massive liability waiver before they finally caved and did the surgery for you. But during the procedure, his failing heart went into severe shock, and he passed away. The second he died, a funeral crew was already there to take his body away. They said he'd paid for everything 10 days ago, the exact same day you two finally reunited. He booked his own funeral. Oh, Miranda, you didn't kill Ethan Lee. Miranda Goo froze. Every single memory from his betrayal 3 years ago to the day he came back flashed through her mind like lightning. The truth was dangling right in front of her face, but it was just out of reach. Gripping the hospital bed to keep from collapsing, she locked onto her only lead, Dr. Liu. She forced herself up and barked at her assistant outside. "Bring Dr. Liu to me." Now, moments later, the doctor stood before her. "Miss Gu, how can I help?" Miranda narrowed her eyes, her glare sharp as a knife. "I want to know everything about Ethan Lee." Dr. Liu played dumb, looking completely confused. I don't know any Mr. Lee. Are you sure you have the right guy?" Her voice was weak, but dripping with absolute authority. "Dr. Liu, you're a smart man. Don't make me do this the hard way." He stared at her. Even sick, the woman's aura was absolutely terrifying, but he couldn't shake the memory of Ethan's heartbroken face, begging him to keep the secret. "Miss Gu," he sighed, "sometimes it's better to just let the past go. Ignorance really is bliss." Miranda's fist clenched so hard, her veins practically popped through her pale skin. She spat out every word. "And what if I don't care?" Dr. Liu let out a heavy sigh. "Fine, Mr. Lee loved you. He really did. And a love like that, it shouldn't just rot in the ground with him." "Miss Gu, 3 years ago, when your heart gave out, the donor was a young man in a coma. Do you know who his father is?" Miranda nodded slowly. "The head of a biotech lab, right? His son's heart is the only reason I'm still breathing." It was true. Ever since her company took off, she had been throwing massive checks at that lab every single year, all to fund their research. Dr. Liu's voice grew dark. "Arthur Tong is an absolute madman. His mother died of ALS. His only goal in life was to cure it, no matter the cost. When he first opened that lab, he had no money and no staff. So, he used his own flesh and blood as a guinea pig. That's how his son ended up brain dead. To test these drugs, he needed living, breathing human beings. 3 years ago, you were dying. You needed that heart transplant, and he knew exactly how to use that against you. So, he made a deal with Mr. Lee." Miranda's eyes went wide. The horrific truth clawed its way up her throat. Her voice shook. "What? What deal?" "He told Mr. Lee to hand himself over, to become his new human lab rat. For 3 long years, they pumped him full of experimental drugs. It completely destroyed his body. His organs were shutting down. The chemicals were literally eating him alive from the inside out. He was useless to the project after that. That's the only reason Arthur finally let him go." Standing in the corner, Logan was absolutely floored. He never saw this coming. Ethan's love for Miranda wasn't just real, it was terrifyingly deep. He traded his own life for hers, without a second thought. An invisible hand crushed Miranda's chest. She couldn't breathe. The agony was blinding. Ethan, oh God, my Ethan. He had gone through literal hell for her. And what did she do? She hated him for it. She had tortured him, humiliated him at every turn just to break his pride. Miranda wanted to go back in time and strangle herself. But first, she had a score to settle for Ethan. Her eyes glowed blood red. She looked like a demon crawling straight out of hell. She gritted her teeth. "Arthur Tong, I am going to make you drown in your own blood." Soon after, a fancy invitation arrived at the lab from Goo Corporation. Arthur Tong grabbed his contracts and practically sprinted to the meeting. Goo Corporation was offering a $10 billion grant to fund his drug research. Arthur was over the moon. With $10 billion, he knew he finally had enough cash to perfect his miracle cure for ALS. By then, he would be an absolute legend for generations to come, a great man permanently written into the medical history book. There was just one tiny catch. The location for this big meeting wasn't exactly standard protocol. It wasn't held at the towering Goo Corporation headquarters, but was scheduled at Miranda Goo's private, secluded mansion instead. Even weirder, he was the only person invited to the party. But at this very moment, Arthur Tong was completely blinded by sheer, intoxicating greed and overwhelming joy. Any slight flicker of suspicion was instantly brushed aside. Miranda Goo personally welcomed him at the door, making Arthur feel deeply honored and totally overwhelmed by her VIP hospitality. She slowly picked up the elegant crystal wine glass sitting right in front of her, raised it slightly toward the doctor, and muttered in a chillingly deadpan tone, "Director Tong, please, no need to be so polite. Just make yourself right at home." Arthur hastily grabbed his own glass, grinning ear to ear. "President Goo, you are truly magnificent and unbelievably generous. Please accept my absolute deepest respect for your massive donation to our research institute." She watched in absolute silence as he greedily drained the expensive wine in a single gulp. A faint, icy smile crept onto Miranda's face as she finally spoke. Speaking of generosity, if you hadn't so graciously donated your own son's heart to me back then, how could the Miranda Goo of today even exist? Arthur chuckled, waving his hands humbly. Oh, not at all, President Goo, not at all. Every true healer possesses a deeply benevolent heart. I consider myself a proud, dedicated member of the medical community, after all. So naturally, I could never just stand by and watch someone die without stepping in to save them. Without warning, Miranda violently smashed her glass right onto the hard marble floor. What a beautiful line. A healer possesses a benevolent heart. Then let me ask you this. Director Tong is using completely healthy living human beings for illegal drug experiments. Exactly what you would call a benevolent heart? Arthur jumped back, totally startled by her sudden explosive outburst, and in that terrifying split second, his gut finally told him that something was horribly, horribly wrong. Quickly standing up, he stammered, President Goo, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. It seems we can't discuss today's contract right now. I think I will be leaving now. After throwing out those words, he immediately spun around to escape, only to discover upon reaching the heavy entrance doors that they had been dead-bolted shut. At that exact same, horrifying moment, the strength in his limbs felt like it was being completely sucked away, leaving his legs trembling and entirely unable to even stand up straight. Miranda stood up at her own unhurried pace, twirling a gleaming, razor-sharp scalpel in her hand. She casually closed the distance toward her prey. With his back pressed hard against the cold wall, Arthur's eyes widened in sheer, unadulterated terror. President Goo, please, let's just talk things through like rational adults. Is it at all possible that you've just had some sort of massive misunderstanding here? Miranda just smirked, clapping her hands together twice. Instantly, right on the wall directly in front of them, a massive, heartbreaking portrait of Ethan Lee rolled down. Arthur Tong. Back then. The sick condition you set before agreeing to let your son donate his heart to me. Tell me, do you still remember what it was? Ethan was brutally tortured by you and your hellish research institute for 3 whole years, and now you have the nerve to tell me it's just a misunderstanding? Staring up at the striking portrait of Ethan Lee, Arthur's mind flashed back to the exact events of those dark days. At that specific time, his research institute was bleeding cash, completely lacking sufficient funding, and suffering from a severe critical shortage of human trial subjects. He had absolutely no clinical data, causing his prized experiment to hit a massive brick wall. But as luck would have it, this desperate boy came looking for him. Ethan had dropped to his knees right in front of him, begging the doctor to donate his brain-dead son's heart to save his dying lover. The kid promised he was completely willing to work like a literal slave to repay that massive debt for the rest of his miserable life. So, Arthur happily proposed his one condition: Ethan had to surrender himself to the Institute as a human guinea pig. He stayed there until just a short while ago, heavily abused by long-term drug testing. The various functions of his young body had so severely failed that he could no longer survive the harsh trial work. Only then did the cruel doctor finally approve his release from the facility. A deeply sinister, utterly broken smile crept across Miranda's beautiful face. Stepping right into Arthur's personal space, she suddenly raised her hand and fiercely drove the surgical blade deep into his shoulder. Arthur let out a horrific, blood-curdling scream, the blinding flash of intense pain violently dragging his sanity back to reality. He looked up at her, pathetically, pleading. President Goo, becoming a test subject back then was entirely his own choice. I swear, I didn't force him into doing it at all. Unfazed, Miranda gripped the handle of the bloody scalpel and ruthlessly twisted it down a few fractions deeper into his flesh. Her cold eyes gradually grew frantic with grief. Oh, he was a willing participant? Well, I was definitely not willing. I would have much rather died myself than have him save my life in this twisted kind of way. Arthur immediately broke out in a freezing cold sweat, his entire body trembling uncontrollably from the excruciating pain. His weak legs could no longer support his own weight, and he collapsed into a pathetic heap directly on the floor. President Goo, please, spare my life. Just spare me. I'm begging you. Miranda yanked the bloody knife completely out. I could spare your life, but tell me, did you ever show even an ounce of mercy to Ethan? A perfectly healthy human being. He was tortured alive by you in that hellhole until his organs failed, and he died alone. So today, I am going to make you pay for his stolen life with yours. Without a second of hesitation, Miranda gripped the slick knife and fiercely plunged it right back into him. Before long, Arthur's squirming body had been pierced with countless bleeding holes. And yet, with terrifying medical precision, every single strike had deliberately avoided his vital organs. Arthur Tong's whole body was racked with agonizing pain, twitching and curling up into a pathetic little ball as he desperately begged Miranda Gu for mercy. President Gu, I swear I didn't know he was so important to you. Otherwise, even if you gave me 10 times the courage, I never would have dared to use him as a human test subject. Look at you, you're wildly successful now, and you have a wonderful fiancé right by your side. There is absolutely no reason to throw the rest of your life away, all over a pathetic, worthless piece of trash like me. Miranda Gu's icy gaze fell upon him, completely devoid of any human warmth or pity. No matter what garbage spills out of your mouth today, you are not escaping your death. She raised the gleaming knife high, aiming it dead center at Arthur Tong's heart, fully intending to deliver the final, lethal blow. But suddenly, the door was forcefully shoved open from the outside. The moment Logan Ding took in the horrifying scene inside the room, he lunged forward and desperately grabbed Miranda Gu's wrist. The sharp tip of the blade hovered dangerously just inches above Arthur Tong's pounding heart. Logan spoke with frantic, breathless urgency. Miranda, stop. Don't do something impulsive. Arthur Tong illegally used living, breathing people for his twisted drug research. Let the law punish him the way he deserves. If you murder him right here and now, you cross that line and become a killer yourself. You absolutely cannot do something so incredibly foolish. Miranda Gu violently ripped her hand away from Logan's grip, her eyes totally clouded over with a terrifying dead silence. Logan, what exactly do you mean by foolish? Ethan willingly became a human guinea pig just to save my life. And yet, he didn't even have the courage to tell me. He actually preferred to invent some disgusting lie about cheating, just so I would misunderstand and absolutely hate him. Tell me, would you call that foolish? Even knowing his own time was running out, he still chose to donate his corneas to me. And he ended up dying all alone in that cold operating room. Would you call that foolish? He clearly loved me more than anything in the world, and he gave up absolutely everything he had just for my sake. And yet, I didn't even know he was dead. I was actually out there, joyfully planning a massive wedding with someone else. Is that what you call foolish? He played the absolute fool for my sake, over and over again. So what does it matter if I play the fool for him, just this one last time? Logan Ding frantically shook his head, his tears falling down his face like heavy rain. Miranda, listen to me. Mr. Lee sacrificed so much for you precisely because he desperately wanted you to live a beautiful life. You cannot betray his final wishes like this. My life only means something if he is still alive. The second the words left her mouth, Miranda Gu raised the knife high, ready to plunge it down. Logan Ding screamed at the top of his lungs. Miranda, do you really want to burn in hell when you die, separated from Mr. Lee for all eternity? The vicious trajectory of the knife suddenly jerked off course, stabbing fiercely into the floor just a hair away from Arthur Tong's racing heart. Miranda Gu froze, her hands trembling. She slowly turned her desperate eyes toward Logan Ding. Will there really be a next life for us? This current life was already doomed to be a suffocating abyss of pure darkness for her. Ethan was dead, meaning any chance of a happy ending with him in this world was shattered forever. All she wanted now was the promise of a next life with her beloved Ethan. Sensing her hesitation, Logan Ding sucked in a deep, shaky breath and swore, "Yes, there is. There absolutely is. And think about it. Since Mr. Lee was such an incredibly pure and kind-hearted soul, he is definitely going straight to heaven. But if your hands are completely soaked in blood, how will you ever find him when you're dragging yourself through hell?" He gently reached out, carefully peeling the bloody scalpel from Miranda Gu's trembling fingers as he spoke in a slow, soothing voice. Arthur Tong deeply hurt Mr. Lee in the most horrific ways imaginable. So, we should make this bastard live a miserable, half-dead existence, enduring pure torment every single day of his life. That's so much better than granting him a quick, painless death. Miranda Gu cast a chilling, indifferent glance at Arthur Tong, who had completely passed out on the floor. She coldly snapped her fingers, calling over the hulking bodyguards to violently carve out his tongue. She ordered them to dump him at a hospital, strictly just to keep his miserable heart beating. Ethan had suffered through 3 agonizing years of endless torment. Now, she was going to make Arthur Tong pay it all back in blood, 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Right after that, Miranda Gu led her enforcers on an absolute rampage, violently smashing Arthur Tong's entire underground drug lab into a million jagged pieces. But when they recovered the hidden surveillance footage, she finally got to witness firsthand the absolute living hell that Ethan Lee had been enduring here over the past 3 years. When he first arrived on day 1, Ethan was still that same bright, warm young man from her fondest memories, the boy who always had that beautiful smile. But those psychotic researchers didn't treat him like a living human being at all. To them, He was just a slab of meat for their sick experiments. Day in and day out, they forcefully drained his blood, shoved experimental toxins down his throat, and ran brutal laboratory tests on him. Day after miserable day, he choked down their drugs just to give them their precious data points. Not a single soul cared about the agonizing, bone-crushing pain tearing through his body from those harsh chemicals. As the violent toxicity of the medication slowly ate away at his system, Ethan Lee's handsome face grew paler and more sickly by the day, his spirit beaten down into a hollow shell. By the bitter end of those tragic video logs, my own body was completely broken and exhausted, utterly failing to withstand the deadly, corrosive nature of their drugs. My whole body was violently thrashing and rolling across that freezing lab floor, trapped in a nightmare of pure, unrelenting agony. But even through the blinding pain, my parched lips kept continuously calling out one single word, her name, Miranda. It hurt so much, Miranda. I miss you so damn much. Watching this, Miranda Goo completely broke down, unable to hold back her sobs as she reached out a shaking hand to caress my tiny suffering silhouette on the cold monitor. God, how she desperately wished she could reach through the glass, smooth out my tightly furrowed brow, and endure every last second of that agonizing pain in my place. Hot tears of absolute gut-wrenching regret streamed down her face, pouring out uncontrollably. She despised herself. How could she have been so blind? When I tried to reach out to her back then, she was completely blinded by her own furious hatred, tearing me down and tormenting me, just desperately trying to break me and force me to submit. She just wanted to hear me beg for forgiveness, desperately searching for any tiny spark of love I might still have for her. But every single time, her crushing disappointment fueled her rage. She hated my guts for being so cold, for throwing away all those beautiful years we spent together. And now, she finally got it. It wasn't that I stopped loving her, it was that I loved her way, way too much. That's exactly why I pushed her away with such cruel words, just to bury the overwhelming love burning deep inside my soul. Miranda finally tracked down my old room at the Research Institute. It was suffocatingly tiny, just big enough for a single bed, without even a sliver of a window. I had survived in that dark, cramped little box for 3 whole years. She curled herself into a tight ball on that miserable bed. It was as if hugging herself there could somehow bring back my warmth, capturing the burning, unspoken love I left behind. Ethan, I miss you so much. In a hazy daze, the memory of the day she confessed her feelings flooded right back into her mind. Back then, we had just turned 18. The rules were strict, we aged out and were kicked out of the orphanage. After living there for more than 10 years, everything we owned fit into a couple of pitifully small bags. Dragging my worn-out luggage, I kept glancing back at the only home I knew, whispering, Miranda, I've been here since the day I was born. This is my home. I feel like I'm being thrown away all over again. My chest felt unbearably heavy. Miranda hesitated for a heartbeat, then grabbed my hand tightly and said, Hey, you still have me. I'm your family now. I promise I will never abandon you. I pulled my hand away, pouting with a hint of jealousy. Yeah, right. Once you get a boyfriend, you'll totally forget I even exist. I literally just saw that popular guy confessing his undying love to you the other day. She reached out, snatching my hand right back. I rejected him, she said softly. I turned away, stubbornly ignoring her. Well, even if you rejected him, there's gonna be a ton of other guys lining up for you later. Sooner or later, you're gonna say yes to one of them. I was barely 18, getting swept up in my very first crush. The truth was, my feelings for Miranda had already grown deep roots in my heart, but from day one, she treated me like a helpless little brother. I had no clue how she actually felt about me. I was too much of a coward to ask, but absolutely terrified of some other guy stealing her away. Miranda, however, saw right through me. Flashing a bright smile, she said, You know, I actually have a foolproof fix for that, a way to guarantee that even if I get a boyfriend, I'll never leave you behind. She pulled me into a sudden tight hug and whispered, Ethan, be my boyfriend. Let's level up from being just family. That way, our names will be legally tied together on the exact same registry forever. Okay? My brain short-circuited. I was completely dumbstruck. And then, with my face burning bright red, I finally nodded. Later, when we really poured our hearts out, we realized we had both fallen for each other a long time ago. Miranda even teased me about it. She said she was terrified of scaring me off and originally planned to wait until college to make her move. I just didn't expect you to be in such a panic, she'd joke. If I hadn't confessed right then and there, you probably would have burst into tears. Our very first kiss happened right by Swan Lake on our college campus. It was Christmas Day. We had just dragged ourselves back from our exhausting part-time jobs, and it was pushing midnight. While I was walking her back to the girls' dorm, we strolled past the lake. I reached into my bag, pulled out a little hand-knitted apple, and handed it to her. She took it with a huge smile, but I put on a pouty face and grumbled, "Hey, it's Christmas. Didn't you get me a gift at all?" Miranda had been working herself to the bone every single day, completely swamped. She honestly hadn't even thought about holiday surprises. But seeing my face, she didn't want to let me down, so she blurted out, "Just wait 30 minutes, I'll be right back." She literally turned to sprint off and buy something, but I quickly yanked her back. "There's no need. I already have the exact gift I want." I lowered my gaze and slowly, gently leaned in close to her lips. Even now, Miranda clearly remembered how incredibly bold I was that night, and the sight of my shy, burning cheeks. Who knows how much time slipped by before Miranda's phone suddenly rang, violently jolting her out of her precious memories. Her assistant's frantic, ecstatic voice blared through the speaker. "President Gu, I found it." The moment she heard the devastating news of my death, Miranda had ordered her people to rip the funeral center apart, looking for my ashes. But the funeral staff had shut them down, claiming I had signed a strict confidentiality agreement before taking my final breath. To ensure my information stayed completely hidden, Miranda Gu had to resort to some truly ruthless, aggressive measures. That was before she finally discovered my ultimate plan. The package I had booked at the funeral center was a peaceful lavender flower burial in Provence, but the exact location remained a total mystery. Refusing to give up, she dispatched her top assistant to Provence to hunt me down. While she stayed behind to mercilessly exact revenge from me, she truly believed that once my ashes were recovered, we could finally be together forever. "Ethan, I only hope your footsteps are just a little bit slower right now so you can wait for me." Suddenly, her assistant's panicked voice cracked over the phone. "President Gu, there are no ashes. Mr. Lee isn't dead. He is currently alive in the city of Aix." Exactly 30 minutes later, a sleek private jet tore through the sky, taking off from Capital City with its compass locked straight for Aix. Meanwhile, a worried voice called out to me, "Mr. Lee, why didn't you call for me when you stepped outside? What if you were to trip and fall?" A faint, bittersweet smile tugged at the corner of my lips as I stared blankly ahead, my sightless eyes seeing nothing. I took a slow breath and said, "I just woke up, and I simply wanted to come out to catch the sweet scent of the blooming flowers. I've already grown incredibly familiar with this place over the past few days. Trust me, it really isn't that easy for me to fall anymore." Back then, lying cold in the operating room, the doctor had officially pronounced me dead due to massive cardiac shock. But as the funeral center staff zipped up my body bag and rolled me toward the blazing cremation chamber, my frozen heart unexpectedly, miraculously resumed its beating. Snatched right out of the jaws of death, I didn't feel a single ounce of thrill. I knew with absolute certainty that the grave would still be my final destination. I honestly had no clue what twisted meaning God had in mind, letting me drag out my life for these agonizing few extra days. I begged the bewildered staff from the funeral center to bring me all the way to Provence, so I could silently and peacefully await my death here. The exact second those heavy words left my mouth, my trembling legs completely gave out from sheer exhaustion, and I collapsed hard onto the cold ground. Chloe immediately rushed over, desperately helping me back up and guiding my broken body to an adjacent bench. "Mr. Lee, your body is incredibly weak. You should just stay seated." Trembling, I fished a bank card out of my closed pocket, awkwardly fumbling in the dark to press it firmly into Chloe's warm hand, and softly said, "Chloe, thank you so much for taking such wonderful care of me these past few days. I have this heavy, sinking premonition that my time will end within the next 2 days. There are still tens of thousands of dollars left on this card. Please, consider it a small token of my deepest appreciation for your exhausting hard work." Panic flashing in her voice, Chloe hurriedly waved her hands in frantic refusal. Quickly realizing that I couldn't see a thing, she firmly pushed the card back into my cold hand and insisted, "There's absolutely no need, Mr. Lee. Taking care of you is my job. Furthermore, I feel a genuinely deep connection with you. Taking care of you is entirely of my own free will, not for some paycheck." I stubbornly pressed the card back into her hand, letting out a weary sigh. "I am a broken orphan, and I'm about to die anyway. This money is completely useless to me now. If you truly, stubbornly refuse to keep it, then I beg you to wait until after my final breath and donate this money straight to the orphanage in Capital City." Because I phrased my dying wish that way, Chloe felt she had absolutely no choice but to accept the money, clutching it tightly as she solemnly promised, "Mr. Lee, please rest assured. I will absolutely convey your beautiful kindness to the little children at the orphanage." I let out a soft, relieved smile and murmured, "Thank you." Chloe quietly sat down beside me, leaning in close as her curious voice broke the silence. "Mr. Lee, I have to ask, Do you genuinely believe that people truly go straight to heaven after they die? I tilted my head. Why do you ask that? Chloe let out a sigh. I recently watched this terribly tragic idol drama. It absolutely wrecked me and stole so many of my tears. In the tragic ending, the male lead died, but he made a tearful promise with the female lead that he would wait for her in heaven. My voice sounded incredibly soft, barely above a whisper, as I nostalgically murmured, "You know, when I was little." I always heard the strict house mothers at the orphanage say that those who did absolutely no evil during their lifetimes and possessed purely innocent souls would ascend to heaven after they died. Chloe nodded with absolute certainty. Well then, a person as incredibly kind-hearted as you, Mr. Lee, will definitely, undoubtedly be able to go straight to heaven after you pass away. A heavy sigh escaped my lips, my lonely tone carrying a deep, aching sense of desperate yearning. I've always heard that heaven is a perfectly beautiful world, completely free of sorrow, completely free of pain. In that magical place, there is supposedly only eternal happiness. But the agonizing question was, could a world without Miranda Goo truly be a happy place for me? Honestly, I wasn't entirely sure. I grew up trapped in a miserable orphanage since I was just a child. The forgotten children there all kept identical, boring hairstyles, wore identical, faded clothes, had rigidly fixed activity times every single day, and ate the exact same tasteless meals. My life was completely dead, numb, and miserably stagnant, right up until that fateful year when I was exactly 7 years old, and Miranda Goo unexpectedly arrived at our orphanage. She stepped out wearing a pure, flawless white dress, and her beautifully wild, small curly hair was vibrantly different from everyone else's dull look. Without even trying, she instantly captured my full attention. That very same cold night, I shockingly discovered her hiding all by herself, shivering under her thin blanket. Hearing her secretly weeping, I gently pulled back her blanket and softly asked her why she was crying. You see, children who grew up trapped in a harsh orphanage matured incredibly early. They learned to stop crying at a very young age because they brutally knew that shedding tears couldn't solve a single problem. With shimmering tears still stubbornly clinging to her eyelashes, Miranda Goo stared completely blankly at me, her lower lip violently trembling as she sobbed out, I miss my mom and my dad. But your mom and dad clearly don't want you anymore, I blurted out. In my broken, subconscious mind, only unwanted children who were cruelly abandoned by their own parents would ever be dumped into an orphanage. Unfortunately, that single, brutally blunt sentence pierced her fragile heart and instantly made her cry even louder than before. Backed into a corner, I pulled out a piece of milk candy I had been hoarding for ages, tore off the wrapper, and popped it straight into her mouth. That finally stopped her tears. Little did I know, that tiny sweet was the spark that made us absolute best friends. It was only later that I learned the truth. Miranda Goo ended up in the orphanage because she lost her folks in a sudden, tragic accident. But for kids like me, the ones tossed aside from the very day we were born, the details did not really matter. At the end of the day, we were in the same lonely boat, two kids without a family. To make up for it, Miranda would tell me all these wild stories about the outside world, things I had never gotten to see. Naturally, I became completely glued to her side, hanging on to her every word, and my heart ached with this crazy yearning to see the world beyond those gates. For 11 long years in that orphanage, we were everything to each other, our only backup, our true family. The year we turned 18, she finally confessed her feelings for me. We even crushed our exams and made it into the exact same college together. Fast forward to our junior year, Miranda hit the jackpot writing software and bought us this cozy little 3-bedroom apartment. Just like that, we finally had a place to call our own. Right there in that apartment, Miranda and I shared our first, incredibly intimate night together. Afterwards, she just leaned her head on my shoulder, quietly watching as I sketched out the perfect wedding dress for her. The plan was simple: get married right after graduation, have 2 adorable kids, and build this picture-perfect family of 4. But man, fate has a sick sense of humor. We had been inseparable for 15 years. Miranda was the main character of my entire life story. Even if I made it to heaven, it would be hell without her. I honestly started feeling jealous of that main character Chloe was telling me about. Sure, the guy kicked the bucket, but he at least had a forever promise with the love of his life. Me, I had absolutely nothing. I did not even have the guts to tell Miranda I was knocking on death's door. "Mr. Lee, why are you crying?" Chloe asked, staring at the tears streaming down my cheeks. I scrambled to wipe my face, quickly brushing it off. "It is nothing, really. The wind is just a bit strong today. Must have gotten some dust in my eyes." The irony? There was not a single breeze in the room. But Chloe did not call me out on my terrible lie. She knew my calm front was just an act. Honestly, when you are staring the Grim Reaper right in the face, who wouldn't be shaking in their boots? Plus, I was way too young for this. Chloe could not help but sigh, cursing the heavens for being so horribly unfair. How could someone as kind and gentle as me get such a raw deal? Mr. Lee, let me read the news for you, she offered softly. That was our daily routine. Since I had lost my sight, Chloe always made sure to hunt down the weirdest, funniest stories to read out loud. She whipped out her phone, did a quick scroll, and dramatically cleared her throat. Listen to this one. A married couple daydreamed about winning a $5 million lottery and ended up in a massive fistfight over how to split the imaginary cash. Oh, and here is another. A college guy named Lee scored a hot girlfriend online who looked super young, only to meet up in person and find out she was actually his roommate's mom. Yikes. And get this. A robber snagged over $10,000 in cash, got pickpocketed on his getaway, and got so mad he actually called the cops on the thief. She rattled off story after story, but all I could manage was a weak, fake smile. She definitely noticed I was completely miserable today. Mr. Lee, what is going on with you today? Are you hurting somewhere? I just shook my head slowly. No, I just tossed and turned all night. The brutal truth? I had not slept a single wink. Because today was the day. Miranda Gu and Logan Ding's wedding day. Today, the only woman I ever loved was walking down the aisle, and I was not the groom. Well, how about I help you back inside so you can rest, she offered. I shook my head again, finally making a heartbreaking decision. Chloe, could you tune into the live stream? The wedding between Capital City's Miranda Gu and the Ding family's young master, Logan Ding. Chloe looked totally confused, but she pulled it up anyway. Mr. Lee, why do you want to watch their wedding? Back when I lived in Capital City, I heard this wedding was going to be insanely lavish. Like, costing hundreds of millions just for the decorations alone. Yeah, that is exactly why I wanted to see it. Then, remembering my blind eyes, I bitterly corrected myself. I wanted to hear it. I just want to hear how grand it is to live out my own dream of a wedding, just for a moment. Chloe tapped into the live stream of some trending internet influencer. To make sure I caught every word, she cranked the volume all the way up. The streamer was hyping up the camera. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I am coming to you live, bringing you an exclusive look at the event of the century, the ultra-luxurious wedding of Capital City's tech queen, Miranda Gu, and the Ding family's very own golden boy, Logan Ding. As the camera panned the venue, the host gasped in awe. Rumor has it that CEO Gu's gorgeous partner is absolutely obsessed with lavender, and guys, it shows. So, the entire wedding theme was dripping in this gorgeous, soft purple hue. Even the banquet hall chandeliers were carved from pure, luxurious amethyst. The live stream host was absolutely hyping up the venue, rattling off every single flex in an endless stream of words, breaking it down piece by piece. From the fresh flowers flown in on a private jet to the pure silk red carpet, I listened intently to the broadcast, the opulent scene painting itself perfectly in my mind's eye. Exactly 1 hour later, the groom, Logan Ding, finally made his grand entrance at the venue. At the entrance, the host let out a sudden gasp of surprise. Oh my gosh, they are here. They are actually here. The groom and bride are about to take the stage. Viewers, whatever you do, stay locked into my stream. Do not swipe away. But as Logan stepped onto the red carpet, rocking a stark black suit, he marched toward the stage with a shockingly grim, resolute gaze. The host's voice dropped into total bewilderment. Wait, that is super strange. How come it is only the groom? Where on earth is the bride? And did the internet rumors not explicitly claim their wedding attire was lavender themed? Like, personally designed by the bride, Miranda Gu, herself? So why on earth is Logan only wearing a totally standard ordinary suit? Ignoring the whispers, Logan walked to the absolute center of the stage, grabbed the microphone, and stared down at the sea of guests. Welcome, friends and family, who traveled from afar to attend our wedding today, he started. I want to express my deepest, most sincere gratitude to every single one of you. But before the banquet kicks off, I have a massive announcement to make. And that is, today's wedding is officially canceled. Boom. The moment those words dropped, the entire crowd erupted into an absolute, chaotic uproar. Canceling a wedding right at the altar? It sounded completely, utterly insane. Everyone started frantically whispering and debating, while the host gasped in pure shock. The bride is totally MIA at her own wedding. She literally left the groom hanging by his lonesome self in this massive banquet hall, just to announce the cancellation all on his own. Guys, there is absolutely some massive, earth-shattering drama buried in this. Could she have cheated right before tying the knot? Listening in, I was completely paralyzed by shock myself. How the hell could their perfect wedding possibly get canceled? Why had not Miranda showed up to her own big day? A million wild, crazy theories flooded straight into my mind. Holding the microphone tight, Logan continued. This cancellation was a mutual decision, made by both Miranda and myself. In our eyes, marriage is an incredibly sacred, lifelong commitment. And on the eve of the wedding, we realized we just are not the right partners for each other. You simply cannot settle or compromise when it comes to marriage. This is something we both completely, 100% agree on. Therefore, to avoid trapping ourselves in a loveless marriage only to become emotionally dead and eventually part ways, we decided to hit the brakes on this mistake. Logan then delivered a deep, respectful bow to the stunned audience. Once again, thank you all for being here today. Miranda has already made it crystal clear that every single expense for this banquet will be entirely covered by her. Please, just treat this banquet as a huge, fun gathering among friends. But suddenly, a reporter who had snuck in fired off a brutally sharp question. Mr. Ding, if canceling this wedding was truly a mutual decision between you and President Gu, then why is she nowhere to be found? Why did she leave you totally alone to face the music for an event of this magnitude? Here is the massive twist. Just yesterday, right before boarding a flight, Miranda had called Logan to tell him she was flying to Provence to look for me. As for their $1 million wedding, she planned to just have her assistant drop a cold cancellation statement on her personal social media. She knew that when the time came, all the vicious online backlash and rumors would be aimed straight at her, ensuring Logan could walk away from the broken engagement totally unscathed. But Logan straight up refused. He told her to focus entirely on finding me, to go with total peace of mind, and to drop any lingering worries. He insisted he could handle the wedding fallout all by himself. He wanted to stand guard for one very last shift, a final salute to his own unrequited love. That is exactly why he still put on that formal suit today. In his heart, just standing there meant that in this lifetime, he had married her at least once. His love for Miranda might not have matched the fire of my own, but he absolutely refused to let his devotion look cheap or inferior. Flashing a calm, polite smile at the reporter, Logan replied, Honestly, I do not view this as some sort of massive crisis. I am fully capable of handling this just fine. As for Miranda, she has a far, far more important mission to attend to right now, a matter that is more critical to her than her own life. And as her friend, I will naturally back her up with everything I have got. Right on cue, Logan's father led the rest of their family straight onto the stage, forming a solid wall of support behind him, leaving the aggressive reporters completely, utterly speechless. Looking at his family standing firmly by his side, a massive wave of warmth surged through Logan's heart. And at that exact same moment, he silently sent out his most sincere, heartfelt blessings to Miranda, praying that she would successfully find me and that we would never be torn apart again. All this time, Logan had seen exactly how deeply Miranda loved me. He used to think her love was nothing but a tragic, one-sided obsession. But only now did the truth hit him. My silent devotion was far more agonizing. Our love wasn't unrequited. It was a desperately painful two-way street. He could only pray that whoever was up above would finally show some mercy and stop tearing us two lovers apart. As the live stream cut to black, Chloe practically scoffed. Man, you can just tell Logan is totally still hung up on Miranda. I mean, even after all this drama, he's actually out here defending her. If you ask me, Miranda definitely jumped ship. She's the literal definition of a heartless woman, right, Mr. Lee? But my mind was buzzing with white noise. Miranda and Logan canceled their wedding? I hadn't heard a single word Chloe just said. Why on earth would they call off the wedding at the absolute last minute? Did Miranda finally find out the truth? Mr. Lee? Hello? Are you okay? Did you even hear me? Snapping out of my daze, I mumbled, Wait, what did you say? Chloe sighed loudly and practically yelled her hot take again. I said, calling off the wedding means Miranda totally cheated. She is straight up the villain here. Suddenly, Chloe let out a blood-curdling shriek, making my heart jump into my throat. Panic-stricken, I blindly reached my hands out. Chloe, what's wrong? Chloe was frozen, staring wide-eyed at the figure standing right in front of her, someone breathless and completely exhausted from travel. Shock totally paralyzed her. In that moment, she silently swore she would never, ever trash-talk someone behind their back again. Because who in their right mind expects the missing runaway bride to just magically pop up right out of thin air? Just as Chloe tried to stammer out a warning, The new arrival lunged forward, wrapping me in a desperate, bone-crushing hug. Chloe's jaw practically hit the floor. Caught totally off guard by the sudden embrace, I instantly assumed it was Chloe. But seconds later, panic flared. This person was much taller. Their build was completely different. "Who are you? Let go of me," I shouted. But the stranger didn't say a single word. They just gripped me even tighter. Stripped of my sight, sheer terror flooded my veins. I braced myself to fight back, but then I felt a warm, trembling drop of liquid land on my neck. She was crying. Like a bolt of lightning, Miranda's face flashed vividly across my dark mind. My whole body shook. I opened my mouth, my voice barely a whisper. "Miranda?" She loosened her grip just a fraction. Her tear-filled eyes locked onto my face with heartbreaking devotion. "Ethan," she choked out, her voice breaking. "It's me." My heart went into absolute overdrive, consumed by one single, terrifying thought. She knew this absolutely couldn't be happening. In a blind panic, I shoved her away, spun around, and tried to make a run for it. But without my sight, I barely made it 2 steps before I tripped hard, crashing helplessly onto the harsh ground. Miranda instantly lunged after me. Sobbing, she scooped me right back into her arms, her voice heavy with 3 years of agonizing longing and pain. "Ethan, please, how much longer are you going to keep pushing me away?" I shook my head wildly. No, you shouldn't be here. You're supposed to be in the capital. You're supposed to be getting married to Logan right now. Why? Why are you here? "Ethan, I love you," she cried out. "I never stopped. Not even for one single day. Please, please don't run from me anymore." But I love you. I love you so much. In that moment, Miranda absolutely refused to hear my excuses. She just needed me to know. The desperate love she had buried deep down for 3 whole years finally erupted like a volcano. Trembling, I finally raised my arms and pulled her tightly against my chest, tears streaming down my blind eyes like a relentless storm. "But I'm dying, Miranda," I sobbed. "I'm going to die so soon." I couldn't be the man who stayed by her side. I couldn't stomach the thought of her watching me slowly wither away into nothing. And worse, I refused to let her spend the rest of her life drowning in guilt and grief. Miranda gently brought her trembling hand to my cheek, tenderly wiping away my bitter tears as she whispered, "Ethan, I am not going to let you die. Do you hear me? Even if I have to rip heaven and earth apart, don't you ever dare think about abandoning me again." The second the words left her mouth, she dragged me up from the ground and pulled me straight out the door. On her furious drive over, she had already mobilized the absolute best medical experts in the country. She was fully prepared to fight the Grim Reaper himself for my life. She practically shoved me into her car, and within minutes, we were rushing through the hospital doors. But after a grueling round of tests, the head doctor stared at my charts with a heavy, defeated sigh. "Every single organ in his body is completely failing. There's catastrophic internal damage. It's the direct result of consuming highly toxic experimental drugs over a massive period of time. Honestly, the fact that he's even breathing right now is nothing short of an absolute miracle." But Miranda fiercely shook her head, snatching the medical charts right out of his hands. She demanded, "Aren't you supposed to have the most advanced tech in the world? I don't care what it costs. Save his life, and I will pay whatever number you want." "Miss Gu, I am so sorry," the doctor murmured grimly, "but his body is entirely beyond repair. We are completely powerless. His body has completely shut down. He could flatline at any moment." The doctor's voice trailed off, but the heavy silence in the room screamed the unspoken truth. Trembling with pure rage, Miranda Gu snatched the doctor by his collar. "You're lying," she spat. "You're just a hack. And you dare write Ethan off like some lost cause?" Barely clinging to life on that cold hospital bed, I reached out a trembling hand. "Miranda," I breathed. She dropped him instantly, throwing herself at my side and gripping my hand like a lifeline. "Ethan, I'm here. I'm right here." My voice was barely a whisper as I forced the words out. "Miranda, take me home. I know my own body better than anyone. Let the doctor go. It's over." She shook her head wildly. "No, Ethan, don't listen to his garbage. You are completely fine. You're going to get better, and we're going to live a long, beautiful life together." I just looked at her. "Miranda, please, take me home. I don't want my final memories to be the sterile walls of a hospital." Her tone suddenly shifted, coaxing me like a fragile child. "Ethan, baby, listen to me. This hospital is just trash. We're going to a better one." I sighed heavily. "Miranda, stop lying to yourself. Just seeing your face one last time, feeling the warmth of your cheek before the end. That's enough for me. I am totally at peace." But Miranda refused to throw in the towel. She dragged me to another top-tier hospital, only to get slammed with the exact same brutal verdict. My organs were failing. My body had hit its absolute limit. The clock was ticking, and my time could run out in the very next second. I fought her tooth and nail, and finally, she caved, driving us back to our quiet wooden cabin right by the lavender fields. The whole ride there, she was a nervous wreck, holding on to me in a suffocating embrace, her eyes pinned wide open, refusing to even blink. She was petrified that if she looked away for even a split second, I'd quietly close my eyes and leave her alone in this world forever. Feeling her sheer panic, I slowly lifted my heavy arm, brushing my fingers against her cheek to calm her down. Miranda, don't be scared. Her eyes were fiercely bloodshot, brimming with unspoken agony. She buried her face deep into my chest, her voice cracking. Ethan, why? Why did you have to be such an absolute idiot? I would have rather died 1,000 times than let you ruin yourself just to save me. I looked softly at her. Miranda, if the tables were turned 3 years ago, what would you have done? She froze, genuinely weighing my question, but we both knew the truth. In the end, there was only one possible answer burning in her heart. If our roles had been swapped 3 years ago, she wouldn't have hesitated for a second. She would have made the exact same reckless choice, because we loved each other far more than we valued our own lives. Still, she stubbornly pushed back. I definitely wouldn't have been a fool like you. I would have just married you. And then, when you passed away, I'd give it a couple of years, completely forget about you, and get remarried. I forced a weak, annoyed smirk. Damn, if I knew that, I never would have saved you. Exactly, Ethan. You hear me? You never should have saved me. A bittersweet smile tugged at my lips. But Miranda, I couldn't let you die. I just wanted you to live, to be safe, healthy, and happy in this crazy world. She choked on a violent sob. Ethan, in a world that doesn't have you in it, what the hell is the point of me even breathing? That right there was my absolute worst nightmare. It was the exact reason I went to such extreme lengths to hide the ugly truth from her. Miranda, look at me. You have to promise me right now. Even when I'm gone, you have to keep living. You have to live a good life. I'll give you 3 years to mourn me. But once those 3 years are up, you are going to marry Mr. Ding. You're going to start a family of your own. Realizing that even while standing at death's door, all I cared about was securing her future. The dam finally broke. Tears streamed down her face as she cried. Ethan, do you even hear yourself? Do you have any idea how insanely cruel that is? You seriously expect me to watch you die and then just go play house and have kids with another man? I squeezed her hand with whatever strength I had left. Miranda, please, this is my dying wish, my final request. You have to promise me. She squeezed back so hard it hurt. Ethan, I'll give you absolutely anything else in the world, but never that. From the very second the truth shattered her reality, she had already made her choice. She was tying her fate to mine in life and in death. We made a promise, Ethan, a lifetime together. You went through pure hell for me. Did you really think I'd just abandon you now and let you walk into the dark all by yourself? Ethan, I don't care if we're heading to heaven or burning in hell. I am riding this out with you to the bitter end. Hot tears rolled down my cheeks one by one. How can you be so damn stubborn? Why do you have to be such a fool? She gently wiped the tears off my face, her voice steady and fiercely devoted. The whole world can call me a fool, but you don't get to say a word. Because you, Ethan, are 1,000, no, 10,000 times more foolish than me. My heart was drowning in a sickening mix of overwhelming love and sheer suffocating despair. I couldn't change her mind. She was dead set on following me into the grave, but I didn't want her to die. Baby, since you know I threw it all away just to keep you safe, you can't let my sacrifice go up in smoke. You need to carry my hope with you, live a beautiful life, use my corneas, let me see the world through your eyes. But I could have talked until my lungs gave out. She wasn't backing down an inch. When we finally pulled up to the cabin, she reached out to help me out of the car. I slapped her hand away, fuming with frustration, but she just smiled softly, totally unfazed. To Miranda, my raging anger didn't push her away. Instead, it gave her a glimpse of the fiery, lively guy I used to be before everything went wrong. She shadowed my every step like a bodyguard until we reached the cabin. The moment we got inside, I collapsed onto the bed, curling up into a tight, miserable ball. I hugged my knees to my chest, crying out Chloe's name. Miranda didn't beat around the bush. There is only one room here, she stated flatly. I'd already booked Chloe a hotel somewhere else, so now it was just me and Miranda, totally alone in this isolated cabin. Honestly, she looked like she'd fight anyone who tried to separate us for even a split second. She quietly fetched a basin of warm water to help me wash up, but I wasn't having it. I fought her every step of the way, even violently kicking the basin across the floor. But Miranda, she just swallowed her pride, patiently cleaned up the sprawling mess, and brought over a fresh bowl of water to gently clean me up. As she carefully wiped down my fingers, her eyes locked onto the jagged, tiny scars littering the palm of my hand. I could see it in her eyes. Every agonizing memory of how she used to torture and break me was flashing right back through her mind. Without a word, she dropped to one knee right in front of me. She bowed her head, pressing a soft, trembling kiss right into my scarred palm. It was the ultimate gesture of total submission and desperate repentance. Her voice broke. "Ethan, I am so sorry. I was utterly blinded by my own stupid pride and toxic jealousy before. For those 3 agonizing years you were gone. I never stopped thinking about you, not for a single second. There were so many times I wanted to tear the world apart looking for you, but I was so terrified. Terrified I'd find you happily living a new life with Natalie Lou. That whole fake relationship act you two pulled, it haunted me. It turned into a suffocating nightmare that I couldn't wake up from for the longest time. And then, you just showed up out of nowhere. You pulled out that cheap seashell bracelet and tried to pawn it off to me for cash. God, I was so thrilled, yet so uncontrollably furious. Thrilled because you actually held on to the very first gift I ever gave you, but absolutely livid that you were willing to sell our memories away for just $51,000. That rage made me do all those psycho, unforgivable things to you. Ethan, we are running out of time, she pleaded. Are you absolutely certain you want to spend our last precious moments together hating me? My throat felt like it was closing up. Miranda, since you already know I'm living on borrowed time, I'm only begging you for one last dying wish. Please, just promise me you'll live a good, full life. She shook her head wildly. No, I don't want to. Ethan, you have absolutely no idea. You don't know how suffocating and agonizing it was to drag myself through those 3 years without you by my side. Hearing the raw desperation in her voice completely broke my defenses. I couldn't hold back anymore. I reached out my shaking hand, meaning to pull her up off the floor, only to brush against her soaking wet, tear-stained cheeks. She was bawling her eyes out again, and my hardened heart just instantly melted. Miranda, since when did you become such a massive crybaby? I whispered. She didn't even try to deny it. I have never been as strong as you, Ethan. Never. Did you forget? The very first time our paths crossed. I was a crying, helpless mess back then, too. I fumbled blindly until I grabbed her warm hand, pulling her tight against my chest. Miranda, fate has been brutally, sickeningly unfair to both of us. I clawed my way through hell and back just to beat the odds this one time. Just to keep you breathing. So please, don't let my sacrifice be for nothing. Okay? That was the first time I had ever actually cursed the twisted destiny that had turned our lives into an endless, agonizing tragedy. Miranda finally caved, simply because she loved me too much. She desperately wanted to give me the satisfaction of feeling like I had actually beaten this cursed fate. Through her tears, she swore to me that she would live a good, long life, even if breathing without me was going to be pure, unadulterated torture. That night, the two of us finally shared a bed. It was the first time in over 3 long years that we could sleep peacefully, wrapped up in each other's arms. I passed out almost instantly, deeply exhausted. But Miranda, she was way too terrified to actually close her eyes for more than a few minutes at a time. Every little while, she would snap awake and frantically lift her head to check on me, totally paranoid that I was just going to silently fade away into the dark. When morning finally rolled around, the first thing I felt was a warm, gentle kiss pressed right against my forehead. I couldn't help but smile. This right here, this was the exact fairy tale life I had always craved. Just waking up every single day tangled up in the arms of the woman I love. Honestly, even if the apocalypse started tomorrow, I finally had the guts to face it head on. That's when I felt Miranda's breath tickle my ear. Ethan, let's get married. You still owe me a wedding, you know. I completely froze, my brain short-circuiting. But before I could stammer out my excuses, Miranda raised her hand, pressing her soft fingers directly against my lips. No buts, she whispered fiercely. The only thing you need to say to me right now is I do. Just leave the rest to me. I swallowed hard. I do. I was literally running on empty with my time left on Earth. From this moment on, I wasn't going to waste another fraction of a second. The moment she hopped out of bed, Miranda hit the ground running, personally whipping up an absolutely gorgeous breakfast spread for us. As soon as we cleared our plates, we headed straight into town and officially signed our lives over to each other with a local marriage certificate. By that very afternoon, the custom wedding outfits she had personally designed for us were literally air freighted right to our doorstep. I ran my trembling fingers over the insane, intricate embroidery on the groom's jacket. Wait, I asked softly. Is this the suit that belonged to Mr. Ding? Miranda smiled a little. Yes and no. The style is a dead ringer for the one Logan tried on way back when. But this exact piece? I tailored every single stitch with my own two hands. Come here, Ethan. Let me help you get dressed. The actual ceremony we had, it was wonderfully, beautifully simple. Standing right there in the middle of a massive, endless sea of purple lavender, her assistant and Chloe stepped up to play the roles of our officiant and our lone witness. Groom, Mr. Ethan Lee, do you take Miss Miranda Gu to be your lawfully wedded wife, to enter into this sacred covenant of marriage with her, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, for any reason at all, to love her, to cherish her, deeply respect her, accept her for who she is, and remain utterly faithful to her until the very end of your days? Marrying her. Man, that was a dream I'd held on to for a really, really long time. Now, that dream was finally becoming a reality. With my heart pounding, I called out loud and clear, I do, bride, Miss Miranda Gu. Do you take Mr. Ethan Lee to be your lawfully wedded husband? To enter into this sacred covenant with him, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, for any reason at all, to love him, cherish him, to respect him, accept him completely, and remain utterly faithful to him until your last breath? With a soft, trembling smile and heavy tears glistening in her eyes, my Miranda whispered, I do. You may now kiss the bride. I gently lifted her veil. Just like our very first kiss, my heart raced with nervous excitement as I slowly leaned in closer to her. A gentle, cool breeze drifted past us, sweeping in waves of a sweet floral fragrance. It felt exactly like a sacred blessing bestowed upon us by nature itself. But tragedy struck soon after. Following our wedding, my body grew weaker and weaker by the day, often leaving me unconscious for 24 hours at a time. Whenever I crashed like that, Miranda guarded my side without moving a single inch, looking like a silent, heartbreaking statue. It was only when I managed to open my eyes during those rare moments of clarity that she seemed to suddenly snap back to life. My absolute favorite thing in the world was taking Miranda out to the sprawling lavender fields just outside our home. I'd lean my heavy head against her shoulder, breathe in the sweet scent of the flowers, and just feel the gentle breath of the world around us. As the breeze ruffled through my hair, I murmured in an incredibly weak voice, Miranda, I'm so tired. She gripped my hand with a fierce, desperate intensity, her voice violently shaking. If you're tired, baby, just go to sleep. I will stay right here with you forever. But at that exact moment, I stubbornly refused to close my eyes. They say when you're on the very edge of death, you feel it coming. It's true. I knew with absolute certainty that the moment I closed my eyes this time, I would never, ever wake up again. I forced my heavy hand up to gently caress her cheek, desperate to carve every detail of her beautiful face deeply into my soul. Miranda, I've heard that good people go to heaven when it's over. A place with no pain, no sorrow, just eternal happiness. Do you think I'll get to go there? Miranda's eyes were completely bloodshot as she choked out, You will, Ethan. You'll have a beautiful, happy life up there. Miranda, this time, I'll go on ahead. I'll wait for you in heaven. But you have to wait until your life comes to its natural end before you come find me, okay? Tears cascaded down her cheeks as she sobbed. Okay, Ethan, I promise, I will absolutely come find you. A faint, satisfied smile spread across my pale lips. My true love and I now shared a sacred pact. I would love her for all eternity, waiting patiently up above until it was her time. My fingers slipped powerlessly from her warm cheek, and this time, I never woke up again. My lifeless body rested heavily in Miranda's embrace, the warmth draining away fraction by agonizing fraction. She crushed me to her chest with desperate tightness, pressing her trembling lips against my cold cheek. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I can't keep that promise. Without a second thought, Miranda pulled out the lethal dose of pills she'd prepared long ago and swallowed them all. Ethan, I'm coming to heaven to find you right now. You lied to me once before, so now I'm lying to you. I guess that makes the two of us completely even. When I get up there, you aren't allowed to blame me. Or, even if you do, that's fine. Just as long as you let me stay by your side. The corners of her mouth curled into a gentle, peaceful smile. A strong gust of wind swept past, and her body collapsed down next to mine in the sea of lavender. Side by side, both of our faces wore the exact same deeply fulfilled, contented smile. Because from this moment on, we would finally be together. No more sickness, no more partings, just the two of us, inseparable for all eternity. By the time Chloe and the assistant frantically rushed over to the fields, our bodies had long since grown completely cold. Heartbroken, they collected our remains. Once the cremation was finished, They honored the final wish we'd made while we were alive. Together, they scattered our ashes as one, tossing them entirely across those endless lavender fields. With thick tears pooling in her eyes, Chloe looked at the assistant and asked, "Do you think Mr. Lee and President Gu will still be together in the next life?" "They will.